What's going on, everyone? We are live with the locals for this week, which is going to be in a very interesting format. August 2004, and it's weird. It's very weird format. I call it August 2004. That's because it used the October 2004 ban list, and it's a very weird ban list because it's like a hypothetical ban list. They were basically like, okay, we're gonna start banning cards, and here are the cards we're gonna ban. And they basically decided, okay, we're showing off the player base this, and that way they'll be able to get prepared, right? But then when the bans rolled around in October, that's when it was, October 2004, they changed the list a bit to make it a little bit better. So it's sort of a weird thing because it was never really played with in official play. But, we're going through some hypothetical formats, some micro formats, and so it should still be pretty fun to see what people bring and what people do with it. So we're just waiting a little bit. We got one more player who is signing up, but there was issues with the deck, so we're just waiting for them to get in. Yeah, so, but in the meantime, how are y'all doing out there? Feeling good? Excited to see some crazy DM era Yu-Gi-Oh! Because these formats, they get really, really crazy with what people can bring. And yeah, it's very strange stuff. So, I mean, if you've seen my video on this format, which was a long time ago, and also it's not really in any playlists because it's sort of like its own like unicorn of a thing. If you've seen that video, it is like kind of a weird one, kind of a weird format. I basically think it's like tier 0, Reading Gate Turbo with like DMOC at 3 copies, and you go into it off Monster Gate repeatedly, and it is pretty devastating in my opinion. Not really the best thing in the world, but yeah, it's weird. I think I got rid of my old list for it, but I can try and pull it up just to sort of show it off on camera just before we dive into the thing. So let me just pull that up here, going to my content, my videos, and seeing if I can find this thing here. But it's a very, like, once you see the deck list, it will be very clear, how busted this format is. And again, we'll be starting soon. It's just we're waiting on one more deck. So after that comes in, we'll be starting and getting into the action because I do expect these to be pretty action-packed, all things considered. Let's see. I'm pulling up my old video to show it off, so that was that noise, if you heard that. Let's dive in to the deck lists. Yeah, here it is. So, if you look, this is what the deck list looks like here. So, it's just full power Reading Gate Turbo. And it is, it's wild. It's like just unhinged stuff. Rip Haiku. Well, I mean, I will say, because this is one of the formats that, it's not supported by Retrobots, people have to send me their deck list directly. I will say, I'm not sure how well an anti-meta deck would do in the sort of, against the deck that people brought, which may be a signal to what people brought. But I do think that, like, this will be very interesting. I'm not sure if this locals will be like what would happen if we actually held a big tournament for this format, but it will definitely be pretty interesting here. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything yet, but people brought some very interesting stuff because I think a lot of people did want to do the anti-meta route because they were like, well, Reading Gate Turbo is cool and all, but, like, I don't really want to play that deck. Not really my thing. So a lot of people didn't bring that deck. It's a bit of a spoiler there. But hopefully we'll be able to get some game to the deck because I love that deck. I think it's so cool. I'm a Reading Gate Turbo stan all the way. If you look at the default deck I have right now, it's a Reading Gate Turbo deck for GOAT because I'm playing in a GOAT format tournament right now where I am just jamming Reading Gate Turbo. So, yeah, I love the deck a lot, and I think it's really, really good in this format. I mean, this is probably the best it gets because, it's basically completely unhit by the ban list, and it is just so, so powerful. I mean, 3 DMOCs there. But yeah, people brought some very interesting decks. As the Indie Experience says, I mean, they brought a very interesting deck as well. And, you know, once we get the last deck list in, we'll be jumping in and seeing what those deck lists look like. And it should be pretty fun. So right now we got 9 players. We hopefully will get to 10 after a quick thing. There was just some confusion about which format the locals was today. Awu says, how has tournament casting affected your own dueling? Is it a different improvement from just playing? I would say it's probably improved my playing, I think, because, like, I mean, they're different things, right? Like when you're playing, you know your own cards, and when you're casting, you don't know what people have. You just have to guess. But because you have to guess like 2 players at once, it really improves your ability to look at what your opponent's doing and be like, okay, what do they have there, right? Why are they doing this? What do they have? And if you can do that in the middle of a game, it does really help you in your own play. So I do think that casting has definitely helped. And I think that, like, even if you're not like streaming things or something, if you're just watching a game of Yu-Gi-Oh going on, you can just be like yourself, like, okay, you know, this player played this. What do they have? What are they doing? And you can just do that for yourself. And I think just doing that mental exercise can really help with improving your own game. And I think it also improves like one of the hardest aspects of the game as well. So, you know, like people focus a lot on their own technical play, like playing their deck well, which is a very important part of the game, because if you don't have that down, then you're not going to be doing well in the game. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter, right? If you can't play your own deck, you're not going to do well. But, you know, once you do learn how to play your own deck well, and you've got the technical play down, the next thing to level you up is, okay, what is my opponent doing? What are they playing? And this applies for any format in the game, not just the ones that I've covered on the channel. It applies for Modern as well, especially in Modern, because hand traps exist. So you have to do a lot more like, okay, do they have this hand trap? Do they have that hand trap? You know, what do they got in hand, right? How do I play around what they've got? So I do think that that skill transfers over to any format in the game. And so it is quite helpful for my own sort of experience. I'm gonna give the player until 5:10. So we're starting at 5:10 no matter what. Come heck or high water, we're starting at 5:10. Yeah. So I'm just notifying that. Yeah. So okay, Indy, we got a couple different comments here. Hoy said, know thy enemy. Very, very important in playing these games. Not just for your own decks and also, but for everything else. But G-Lam says, I think the mark of a true tier 0 format is when the anti-meta deck can't counter the top deck, assuming both players are playing optimally. I think it's like, if it's like 50-50 between the deck and an anti-meta deck, then I would agree with you, because then, like, okay, you know enough people are going to be playing the anti-meta deck, so then you open up the room for like anti-meta decks and stuff like that, so you can get like a triangle format or something. And so I do think that there are some interesting stuff like that, but yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, like, in order to be tier 0, basically can't really do much against the top deck in the room, even if you're targeting your deck against that deck. So I would agree with that. Any experience says, quiz time, the first fusion effect monster with 1,000 eyes restrict. What was the second? PJ Art Direction says the Last Warrior. And I believe that is the case, Last Warrior from another planet. So very, very powerful monster if you can bring it out in early Yu-Gi-Oh, but it is a bit difficult to bring out in early Yu-Gi-Oh. Astral IQ says, there's a reason fighting game players always tell you to watch your replays. Reviewing is the best way to improve. 100% IQ. And this applies, again, for any format in the game. And it is very nice that Dueling Book does allow you to replay your games and actually see what's going on. I'm just checking this deck to make sure everything is good. And it looks good to me. So we've got that deck in. Locked and loaded. I'll put that player in the... I don't like how Chalanda has changed their sort of... their sort of thing. Let me just double check this. Let me check one thing real quick. Yes. Okay. So we've got all the people here. We're going to shuffle up the seeds a bit. Shuffle. Shuffle. And here we go. On to the tournament. What y'all have been waiting for. So let's start this thing off. I'll send the bracket in the Discord server, where if you want to join in future locals events, head on over to there. Okay, we've got the games going on. Malzero says watching VODs in most games at a high level is almost as important as actually playing the game, and I agree with that as well. And as a note, like, you know, I think that for a lot of these locals, you know, it can be a good snapshot of the format as a whole, but also know that people are going to be bringing decks that might not be as good, right? Like, because locals are a place to experiment a bit before a big tournament, so you might not be bringing your, like, A-game competitive stuff. You just want to see if a deck is potentially viable and getting a bunch of games with it. So, you know, that is important to keep in mind when watching these VODs, but I do think that, like, before the eve of a big tournament, a lot of people do bring a lot of very powerful stuff. And so definitely watching those. And also, like, even if people are playing, like, maybe less than ideal decks, you can still wind up in a situation where, you know, people are playing those decks very well. So you can still learn a lot about technical play from that. And also, like, even if you're watching people who aren't necessarily the most technically adept at this sort of thing, you can sort of watch it and be like, okay, where are they going wrong? What would I do instead, too? So I think that just watching games and getting reps in games is the best way to improve at this game. But just doing everything mindfully is also very important. A lot of people basically just bang their head against the wall and just, like, play decks and stuff. And if they lose, they're just like, oh, that person's sacked. Or, like, you know, oh, well, I couldn't have done anything differently and stuff. And even in games where you win, there's always something you could have done differently, just to potentially improve your play and improve your chances at winning. So it is always important to just be mindful. Just be like, okay, what have I done wrong? Go into it with a humble mindset. Be like, I'm not perfect. What are ways in which I can approach perfection, right? And I think just going into it like that is very, very important. I will also say, like, I think that I've really improved as a duelist over the course of my channel. And that's not necessarily because just due to the, like, casting of the events and stuff. It's also due to just analyzing my own replays really deeply. And just, like, because, like, for each of the videos, I basically go through and I basically talk about the replays and what I could have done differently and stuff like that. And I try and be, like, pretty hard on myself. I try and basically be like, well, you know, this was not the right choice, even though, you know, it might have turned out well. Like, I think I actually should have done this instead, and here's why, and stuff like that. And I do think that that has improved in general, at least my technical play for sure. And so I definitely recommend doing that, even if you're not putting on YouTube, you know. But a painful choice in the opener is always pretty good in this format. But it seems like PJ's probably not playing a Demock Gate deck, because this is not the 5 cards the Demock Gate deck would send. They would probably send a bunch of, like, Democks or things like that. Demock, Reborn Premat is, like, incredibly strong. It's basically FTK. So it seems like this is not a Demock deck. Actually, I'm gonna feature a Demock deck first. Not to say that that game was not good, but I do want to see. I don't think the Demock deck has started yet. Okay, well, actually, never mind. I'm going to jump back into this. It may be quite telling that I'm hopping back into this because, yeah, I'll let the beans out now. Only one player's on the Demock deck, which is very surprising to me because that deck is just so strong. But I think a lot of people were just like, you know, people are going to bring, like, anti-spell fragrance. People are going to bring the hard counters to the deck. And I don't necessarily want to play this deck if it's just going to be anti-spell fragrance in game 2 and 3. So, you know, I think a lot of people didn't want to bring it, and I think that's perfectly fair. I'm curious to see how the Demock Gate deck will do over the course of this locals, given that only one person is on it. If it wins the whole thing, that is a very sure sign that the deck is very good in the format. But I will say, if it does lose, that is a bit of a more ambiguous result, because, you know, only one person brought it. So, like, in Yu-Gi-Oh, just like in life, you know, luck is involved in a lot of things. And so, you know, even if it loses at some point, it's like, does that mean the deck as a whole is not really the best deck in the room? Or does it just mean that the other deck got really lucky and was able to, like, sack the Demock Gate deck? It's a bit tough to say. So we'll have to see exactly how the locals shake out. But yeah, it's a very interesting sort of layout of decks for sure, in my opinion. But we're getting Thunder Dragon action, grabbing 2 more Thunder Dragons. Now, An important note, Delinquent Duo is not in this format, so Forceful and Comfy both are, but Duo is not, which means that, you know, you don't really have to worry about that. We see a reload coming on the part of Model Zero, so they may not be playing a Demok Gate deck, but they're playing something that might be a little bit degenerate here, because you generally don't see reload in decks that want to play a fair game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So they will reload their hand away, draw on 5 new ones, and we'll have to see what happened here. Or 6 new ones? Oh yeah, because of the Thunder Dragons, yep. And they're just going to set one and set another. And okay, so it seems like set another. Okay. Set another in. Oh, well, that explains it. Book of Tayu right there, flipping up a Morphing Jar. So both players losing all 5 cards in their hand. And we know that PJ had a DD Warrior Lady in hand there. So if they pitch that, then we haven't learned anything. But if they don't, which they didn't, then we know this is DD Warrior Lady. So Model can play around with that a bit. Now, unfortunately, they did pitch a Night Assailant, but they don't have any flip effects engraved to get back with that. So that's a bit rough. But, you know, it's still a very, very good situation because they went plus a ton here. Now, the thing is, if they're playing it like an empty jar style deck, you still have a long way left in your combo to actually pull this whole thing off. And it can be a bit awkward. Like, if you don't have Book of Moon to set down the Morphing Jar again, that can be a bit rough. But, you know, you have things like Shallow Grave to get back your flip effects and stuff like that. But you need to get those monsters in grave first. So, looks like card destruction is going to fire off. They're going to discard their hands away here and draw new cards. So, there we go. 4 cards gone. Drag Down, very interesting card, but it does make sense. Gets monsters in grave and also draws you deeper into the deck. I like Drag Down a little bit better in Warrior format, where you get Makura for these empty jar decks as well. You can do some really crazy stuff with Makura combo, using Desert Sunlight as basically more copies of Tayu and using Drag Down to get that into grave, which is pretty fun. Giant Tornado coming down, so getting those 3 cards back to hand here. So that to me says that one of them was probably a Book of Moon. Yep, Book of Moon right there. So flipping down that Morphing Jar there. Now they're probably going to reset a lot of their hand and then Book of Tayu and do all that stuff. But yeah, as Awu says, Model Zero has interacted more with their deck than the opposing player by far. And that is what, you know, this sort of deck does, right? This is Empty Jar. You can play it in this format. And it is a deck that, like, I mean, it can deal with Demok Gate decks because if you deck them out turn 1, then, you know, they can't play. So, you know, it is a deck that you can experiment with. But it is definitely like a bit more fragile of a combo deck than a Demok Gate deck, in my opinion. And you definitely can wind up in situations where you're just in a bad spot, where you're not able to, you know, pull things off. Now, oh, that's pretty good. Pitching a Night Assailant, getting back a flip monster from grave. I feel like you probably want to get back a Night Assailant here, honestly. But, I mean, I don't know. There's a couple different options for you here. But yeah, Night Assailant, in my opinion, is the best because then you get that resource loop going. If you draw into Graceful at some point, you activate Graceful, pitch the Night Assailant, get back another Night Assailant, right? You're basically getting free value there. So yeah, I feel like this is a pretty good spot for Model to be in. They do have a book to set back down that Morphing Jar there, although you don't really need to do that at this point because you've got the other Morphing Jar set there. But Bottom Arrow Budget Film says, rewatch all games you lose at fast forward speed, react faster, win. That's what you got to do. You gotta just react as quickly as possible here. Drag Down is very interesting on a hand of 5 cards, which makes me really wonder what's in that hand that you don't want to set here. Probably not all monsters, I would assume. But if it is all monsters, that's kind of a brick for the Empty Jar deck. But we know Night Assailant's in that hand, so PJ is not going to pick that Night Assailant. We don't quite know what they're going to pick, though. And yeah, this is a wild deck. I think after we watch this deck pop off, we will then jump into other games because this deck is, I mean, it's not really that fun to watch, you know? Like, I enjoy watching it because, like, I'm a degenerate. I just like decks that just go crazy and just do their big combos, especially in this era of the game because, like, decks were not supposed to do big combos in this era of the game. So whenever someone does come up with a way to do that, it can be a bit tricky. But looks like they're pitching a Shallow Grave there. I'm not sure why you wouldn't set the Shallow Grave for when you have, like, Cyber Jar or something there. Cyber Jar is very important in this deck. That might have been a bit of a misplay on Model's part. You just want to deprive them of as many options as possible, in my opinion. So setting the Shallow Grave there probably would have been better, but it looks like they're just passing, so they didn't really have anything there. So, yeah, I mean, again, that is the flaw with this style deck, right? Like, if you can't pull it off, now you're in a bit of an awkward spot. Now, to be fair, if PJ doesn't manage to clear this board here, they lose the game, right? Because they need to clear those morphing jars, or else those morphing jars are going to flip up and wipe out the rest of their deck. So this is threatening lethal on the crackback, but it does give PJ an opportunity to actually win the game here. So that is what we have to keep in mind. That is what we have to worry about. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tricky one here. Yeah, Necomana King is a good side deck card for decks exactly like this, because with Necomana King, that goes to graveyard off a morphing jar or something like that, then you can be in a bit of a tough spot. Magical Scientist will represent a way to clear both those monsters. You bring out double restrict, and then you suck up both the morphing jars, and then you're in a good spot. Which, again, this is why I think they should have set the Shallow Grave, because, you want that as an option, right? Shallow Grave, back a morphing jar in case you lose one. That's pretty strong, in my opinion. So, yeah, a bit tricky, but yeah, this will effectively deal with the board. PJ still has to find a way to win before they deck out, but this is still pretty good on their part. Yeah, and Indie Experience says Skill Drain negates the entire Empty Jar deck, so that is a bit of a flaw with Skill Drain, or not with Skill Drain, but with the Empty Jar deck itself. Oh, Zaborg. Okay, that does do it as well. Someone has Zaborg pop in that morphing jar there. Might as well get it out of hand. But yeah, and then they're going to pass back to Model, and that's one turn on the swords. So Model has to find some way to come back from this. They're going to set one, but that Scientist is basically checking every set they make, because they bring out restrict every single turn, suck up the sets, and what do? Nothing, They are going down 1,000 every time they do that, but, once that swords is gone, they don't really need to worry about that, because they just attack in for lethal damage that way. So, I mean, I don't know. There's not really much to say about this. This is just sort of a slow march to the end, unless Model can draw into like a Tayu and something else. They do still have one Tayu left in deck. So if you can draw into that with something like a Cyber Jar or something like that, then maybe there's something you can do here. Change of Heart on the set, though. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I think this is the wrong play. I think this is not a good play. I guess if it's Night Assailant, you don't care too much about doing this. But if it's anything else, you've lost your chance at using the Scientist to suck it up. Now, they could have another Tribute Monster in hand. We have seen Zaborg here. If they do have another Tribute Monster in hand, this makes a lot of sense. If they don't, then this is potentially costing them the game here. But I mean, I don't know. We don't know what's in their hand. It is just the United Assailant. Okay, so that does just sort of resolve without effect there. That's fine. Still, I think that it was much less of a risk to just Scientists into a restrict and suck it up. But I mean, I think it's fine. It worked out fine here. So yeah, it's just a risk they didn't have to take, in my opinion. Premat here, so Premat could get back a monster to them, Book of Moon down, and then tie you back up. They're going to bring back that jar. Probably they got the Book of Moon here, I assume. Oh, they're just going to attack into the Scientist. Okay, that also works. You need to do this to clear that, so that way your other sets actually go through. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But what will they do beyond that? Do they have a book? Do they not? I mean, we'll have to see. They're going to set another. And switch the United Assailant to defense, pass back. Okay, I think this is pretty decent here. But, if PJ does have, let's see, have they gone through Raigeki? They still have Raigeki. Or, no, actually, I think Raigeki's banned in this format. Yeah, Raigeki's banned in this format. Never mind, they still have Dark Hole. Dark Hole's the one that's still in. So they still have Dark Hole. If they've got Dark Hole, you do want to do this. 5 into Balter, maybe? But, Balter doesn't really do much. Oh, Fiend Skull. Fiend Skull does it. Yeah, Fiend Skull negates all the flips. So, yep, that will work. And, I mean, what does Zero do against this deck? I mean, you need a way to clear Fiend Skull, and you might not have it. So, that's the last turn on swords as well. And this is going to be pretty bad for Model here. I'm not really sure if they can come back from this. Fiend Skull is just so devastating, and the MTGR deck just has so few ways of dealing with it. Okay, booking down the Fiend Skull is a way to do that. Yep, that will deal with that. So now you can flip up Cyber Jar or something like that. Get 5 cards deeper. So it looks like Model might be able to win this one after all. Yep, there's the Cyber Jar, so that will pop everything. And this should probably be the end of the game. Once the Cyber Jar resolves, you usually have a way to get back into it. But the card destruction's gone, so you can't card destruction your way out of it. But, a jar would get them there. So Book of Tayu, very, very good here. Shallow Grave as well, so that should be the end of the game. Yeah, this is just the end of the game here. Because what they do is, I mean, they got Spell Repro as well to get back card D, so they can just do that as well. They've got so many ways to win from that point, and that is just the end of the game. Yep. So that'll be the last game I show off of that. I promise. Let's dive into a game that is hopefully a little bit better. History of Yugioh versus Hoy. Looks like Hoy won game 1, but oh my goodness. What is going on in this locals? What is going on? Oh my word. This is just awful. This is awful. Oh, okay. Looks like Indy lost to Dump Truck, so I'll put that into the thing here. So Dump Truck managed to win that one. Unfortunately, I would have liked to get Indy on cam, but I guess we spent too much time watching the Gradius one. But yeah, this is like it is very interesting. Necomani King is here, so that's the counter against sort of like the empty jar style decks. Just Search here is a bit interesting, just for 5 to clear up a back row slot. Nightmare Wheel as well coming down. Okay. Not terrible, but the issue with this is that, like, it's weird. So, yeah, it's very weird. So, Hoy does have a way to potentially clear the tribe, because they can, why is that minus 1,000? At what point would that minus 1,000? Were there 2 cards there? Did they chain? What happened here? Why is that minus 1,000? I'm so confused. But okay, it looks like Yugioh Roger 1's on a burn deck, so minus 1,000 before Gillosaurus returns. Oh, okay, I get you. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah. Okay, and it looks like History Wider 1's going to set 1. Now, if Hoy does not have a way to deal with this, then they're just dead. They can try pop the tribe itself to just, get it off the field, get the Nightmare Wheel off the field as well. But that's not a good position to be in by far. I mean, Ojama Trio might be set as well. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect the deck to pop off, but it was still a very cool deck. Indie Experience was actually on a Gradius option deck, which is very cool to see. So that was just very neat. I thought it was cool. So I liked it, but unfortunately didn't get to show it off. But yeah, they will send the tribe there. And they get a full hand of cards. But this is not good for them, because many, many burn cards in History Wider 1's deck should do it for them. So, yeah, looks like Hoy is setting 1, setting another, and passing back. I feel like you want to summon here just to play around Trio, because Trio just, like, basically, really messes you up. Yeah, it just messes you up. I mean, Necomani King is a beast, so that's something. But flipping up being Morphing Jar, this probably will be the end of the game, because they probably will draw into some sort of burn here. So, yeah, pitching 5. Pitching some Karibos as well. Karibo is a bit of an interesting card against a burn deck. I'm not really sure how I feel about Karibo there, but it is a card you can play if you want to. Pot of Greed coming down, drawing 2 as well. So, History Wider 1 probably has a way to win here, I assume, right? If they don't have a way to win here, then that is a really bad sign for the burn deck. But I assume this deck will be able to win here. So, they're checking their grave as well. I'm not really sure what they can do, given they've got a rock on field. But card destruction is pretty good. Of course, if Hoy has more Necomani Kings in there, then this could potentially send that and be a bit awkward. But it looks like they're going to pitch a hand of good ones. Those are pretty good ones. But yeah, Boganian, unfortunately, they couldn't summon out the Boganian because of the jar. And yeah, we'll have to see if they draw into a last bit thing about burn. So let's see what they can do with the rivalry. I don't think you can do that in this format, actually. I'm not sure you can do that in this format. I don't know about that. Ask it out with the judges, but I'm not sure if that's something that works in this format specifically, because I know it didn't work in later ones. So I don't know if that's how it works here. I would say ask in the replay, or not replay, rulings channel for that. Okay. Yeah, just I would confirm it. I would confirm it. Yeah. Oh, did he draw one more from card destruction? How many did he pitch from card destruction here? Because Morphing Jar should have given. Oh yeah, that was one more from card destruction. Yeah, because Morphing Jar gave 5, but then he set one and then activated card D, right? So wait, yeah, so actually I should message. Okay, looks like they got it. Yep. Yeah, you're right, Papa Perez. Thank you for pointing that out. So yeah, that happened. I'm gonna get out of this game while they're figuring out all that stuff, just so we can get into a bit more of interesting gameplay here. So let's see what's going on. It is just PJ and Model and yeah, just PJ and Model and Danny and Haiku should be playing as well, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like there was some issues. Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like we're just having issues across the board. Normally these locals go a bit better, a bit more smoothly. But yeah, let's dive into PJ versus Model, see what goes on here, see if this deck will win or not. But Declan96 asks, what do you think about the chance of making a format made up by the community with a defined card pool from early expansions and constantly being updated, ruling and balanced in style of MTG pre-modern? I think it would be cool. I just don't think it would be able to catch on, really. And the issue for that is that, like, it's already enough of an ask to get people to play these old formats because people just, I mean, listen, if you're watching the stream, you probably are interested in these formats, but like the Yu-Gi-Oh community as a whole needs to be like really convinced that these formats are fun to play. And a lot of people are not, unfortunately. And that's just a fact of the matter. I would love it if it was different from that, but I'm, as someone who like has been doing its channel for 2 years, I know that that's not always the case. And because of that, like, it is really hard to actually, sell a format that's like custom made using these cards. I think there would be some interest, but then after the interest is there, it's also like, do the people playing the format, like, can they all agree on what the ban list should be? Because everyone wants to play these old formats for a different reason, right? So if you can't agree on that, then it's a bit of a tough thing as well. So, and that's what it always seems to me like the custom formats come down to, where, yeah, it's a bit tough. I mean, I'm not going to say don't do it because I want people to try it out if they want to do it, right? But I will say it's just sort of like something that I don't see really being that successful. But, it's like you can't necessarily quantify success as just a numbers thing. Because like, I don't know. If it was just a numbers thing, like I wouldn't be doing this channel still, right? Like, you just got to do it for the passion of it, right? And if you get even a small play group together to play it, that's the fun of it, right? So, yeah. The stream is buffering a lot. Okay, let me see. Yeah, it might be YouTube. I mean, I'll check my Wi-Fi, see if the Wi-Fi is good. Wi-Fi 5 bars, so yeah, okay, it looks like AWU is fine in terms of the stream, but the Dueling Book connection broke a bit. Yeah, life is indeed strange. Yeah, if other people are having those issues, yeah, it looks like Haiku is also having those issues as well. So I'm not sure if I mean, it's probably something on my end. I've had issues with the Wi-Fi before. YouTube says I've got an excellent connection here, but it might just be, a thing that YouTube's going through or a thing that just a bunch of servers are going through. Maybe we'll see that there was a global like power outage or something like that that affected things, but I'll try and fix that more for the future. Yeah, maybe get like a booster or something, but yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I know I said we wouldn't be back here, but it's beggars can't be choosers. I do think that like this isn't the worst spot for PJ, but it might just be over soon. Because if Zero has a way to protect themselves here, I mean, they've got 6 cards left. PJ's got 15, so they're already in kind of a bad spot. So maybe, yeah. Yeah, happy to have you here, AWU. Thanks for stopping by, and hopefully we do have a good rest of the stream. Yeah, and hopefully we get to show off like the deck that I put in the thumbnail, because I don't want to do a bait and switch here. But yeah, now Zero is down to basically no cards in deck after this point, which makes a lot of their cards dead. Because now they can't necessarily flip up like a Morphing Jar. They can't flip up a lot of things. Fiber Jar is the only real option here, but all their Tayus are gone. Let's see, do they have a shallow? Well, okay, Forceful is something. Forceful is like, this is sort of like a very undervalued Forceful, because they have a 50-50 chance of drawing whatever you shuffle back, but you're preventing them from getting like 2 cards here, right? It's a 1-for-1 trade at the end of the day here. They have no Shallow Graves left, and Fiber is in Graveyard. They could have a bunch of Spell Repros, I guess, but like, I don't know. You need, let's see, 1 Spell Repro in Grave. They only got 1 Spell Reproduction in rotation. So, yeah, and they've got 3 Book of Tayus gone. Yeah, I don't really foresee this one going in Model Zero's favor here. But, you know, we'll have to find out. You never know what's going to happen. And if they do have the Shallow Grave, at least you do get, or if they've got Spell Reproduction into the Shallow Grave, at least you do get, like, the Fiber Jar set. So if PJ doesn't have a way to deal with that, then it's a bit awkward. But, yeah. Okay, looks like a reload coming down, so just trying to draw that last card in the deck. Just really trying to draw that last card. Yeah, this is a bit unfortunate for Model here, but I do think this is probably just, desperation at this point. I don't see a way that they come back from this. Yeah, it's a bit rough. Model said nope, and yeah, that's going to be the end of the game, so that's how it goes sometimes. Let's see if Hoy and Blah have sorted out their issues here. Okay, it looks like, I mean, either way, I think that, you know, Idru Yugioh one was probably going to win that one. But, yeah, okay, we've got a pretty interesting game here. So this will be a very interesting chain link. So they're going to ring. Interesting. They rung their own Whirly. That's kind of neat. Okay, because they rung that because they want to take the Boganian. I get you. That makes sense. So they ring that, and now they take the Boganian, and now they can attack in for 3k. So that's actually pretty good. Inexperienced Dad, is a face-down attack position monster a legal target for Tayu? Darkness Approach is weird. That is a very good question. Let me look up what Book of Tayu said in its original errata here. Because it very well might not be. But, you know, this comes up so, like, little that, it just says flip 1 face-down monster on the field into face-up attack position. So I would say, based on that text, I do think that, like, it would work there. But I don't know. Declan96 asks, in your opinion, what's the worst of the most popular retro formats? So by most popular retro formats, I assume that you're talking about Edison, Goat, and Tengu Plant, because those are the ones for the 3v3, right? Or maybe Toss, because I think Toss is actually, I think it does. I don't know. I heard rumblings that Toss was going to be in the 3v3 next time, but I could be wrong about that. But I think, I mean, it's tough because there's so few of them, right? And even the one that I think is the worst of the popular ones is still a really good format, right? Like, it's just that, you know, there are so few options of the popular ones to mention. I would probably say, in my opinion, and this is not knocking on the format, it would probably just be Tengu Plant, but I'm also least experienced in Tengu Plant. The reason I do say that, though, is because I do feel like there's a little bit more sackiness in Tengu Plant. And, like, I mean, again, like, I don't think Tengu Plant's a bad format. I think it's a very, very good format. Papa Red's Toss is the format, which is Thunder Dragon Orcus Sky Striker format. Takes place in, I think, 2019, 2018, one of those years. So it's a more modern format, but it is a format that a lot of people have really enjoyed and found a lot of joy in. So it's one that we will eventually get to on the channel in about, like, a decade, probably. Or probably not a decade, but, like, it will take some time to get there, but we'll get there eventually. And it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Some people don't like it, you know, as CS says, it does have Colossum Triple Engage. But yeah, I do also think like, yeah, there is a bit more luck in Tengu Plant. I don't try and judge the format based on the players, because I think that, like, every player base has its toxic elements, right? I think that in Tengu Plant, one of the issues with Tengu Plant is that, like, it is sort of the format that is the least widely accepted. So a lot of people are just like, you know, I mean, a lot of people, they've got a chip on their shoulder, right? They're like, okay, well, it actually is the best format of all time. And like, if you don't agree with that, you're wrong. And like all that stuff. And I feel like that's sort of an unhealthy mindset to have. So like, I'm not saying everyone in the Tengu playing community is like that either, right? But I do think it's something that I have seen, and it's just unfortunate. But it is a fun format. Like, I think it's fun, and I think that like people do generally enjoy it, but it is a bit rough. But in the experience, I'm in the waiting room for my favorite archetype to become legal, and in the meantime, I'm playing decks I find enjoyable, Greed, OTK, Chamberlain, etc., etc. Yeah, fun stuff indeed. Not everyone might enjoy those decks, but for people who do, I'm very glad that they're in the format. And that's always what I say, about both formats and the decks themselves. But Papa Rez says, which formats did I play when they were new? I played a lot of the 5Ds era formats. Now, when I say I played them, I didn't really play them at a super competitive level, right? I, would play with the cards, but I didn't really have the money to like make a meta deck, right? But I was around for when those formats were popping off, and they were a fun time, right? I really like the 5Ds era. I have a lot of nostalgia for it because of that, because I was playing in that time. And so I'm really looking forward to when we get there. History Wide One, Hoy took the 300 from that. Like, it did happen. But anyways, I think the 5Ds era formats are really fun. I do worry, though, in terms of retro formats for them, that they do feel very, very much like, oh, let's go. We've got a chaos monster coming down here. So BLS probably. I think unless they've got Sork, but yeah, BLS coming down, banishing that spell canceller out of there, get it out of there. And that is pretty good. That's very, very clever use of Karibo there. Very, very cool. That's actually really neat. I'm glad we got to see that one. But I am a bit worried that the 5Ds formats will feel a little bit samey. Just because like, certain decks like Blackwings, they're very, very good throughout. And then you get some like really abhorrent formats in there, like Frog FDK, which like, listen, I'm a degenerate. I think that sort of thing is fun. But I also acknowledge that it is very much not everyone's cup of tea. So, looks like card D is going to go off here. So History Wide One is going to draw 2 cards here. They're going to pitch a Rivalry and Drama Trio. So unfortunately, they didn't get the Rivalry turn earlier, or else they would have been able to stop the Black Leather Soldier there. But Necromana King, yo! Okay, that's wild. Yeah, Necromana King will do it. That is the tough thing there. You can activate Karibo, I believe. Let me double check Karibo's wording. Is it during damage? Oh, you're right. You can't activate Karibo there. Yeah, that is very right. Yeah, I will say there was an easy way around this, and that wouldn't have been stopped by what's going on here, because you have you just summon out Karibo, crash it into the spell canceller, and then that does the same thing. But that is a very, very good point, Papa Perez. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, it would have turned out the same way if Hoy had done that, and there's no Rivalry there, so like you can still do that. And I think the other back row was not anything, or I don't think it was anything, but I don't know. I think they just had the one set and it was Magic Jammer, so it wouldn't have mattered there. But yeah, it is important to note for the future. But yeah, I think that it ultimately turns out where Hoy wins that either way, because if you're planning on getting the Karibo in grave, you just summon out Karibo, crash it in a spell canceller, and you're still not in lethal range. And based on what was in History of YG1's hand there, it still would have worked out the same way. But very, very good point. And so that play, I guess, is a little bit less cool than it looked like it was going to be. But so we've got Hoy moving on to face whoever wins this whole string. Very, very convoluted bracket here, but I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. But yeah. So yeah, and like I wouldn't classify that as like a game. I wouldn't give like a game loss to Hoy, and also like neither player caught it. That's another thing. It's accepted game state. I didn't even catch it watching the stream, so like it's something that I don't think was on purpose or intentional in any way, and something that also had an easy way to resolve to that point. So I think it would just be like a warning if we were doing like an official tournament of this. But thank you very much for pointing that out. Any experience says degenerate stuff is always fun the first time, then it goes back to being degenerate. I do think that like it's on a spectrum of it. Like sometimes you just want to watch the world burn. You want to play a deck like that. I do think though, it's a bit of a weird spot to be in, right? I don't begrudge people for playing degenerate decks, and I I do feel like they can be fun to play, but also I do feel like for a lot of degenerate decks, the more interesting part of it in terms of like playing it actually comes from building the deck, right? Because like once you actually get into the games, a lot of the time the plays are very straightforward, right? There are exceptions to that. But I think that a lot of the time it's just like, okay, I've got these cards, I do this thing. And, you know, you got to math occasionally, but I do think that like burn in general, or just degenerate decks like that in general, are pretty straightforward. So the real fun comes from building the deck and also inciting. Whereas like a lot of decks that people do like to play instead of that are a bit more about sort of what happens in the moment, right? You've got to play different ways given what your hand is. And I think a lot of degenerate decks don't really do that sort of thing. Blazon56 said Tier 0 formats are boring because most of the games are mirror matches. I think it depends on the Tier 0 format. There are some Tier 0 formats that I find really enjoyable, just because I like the mirror match. Like, it's sort of like, people don't say that chess is boring because it's just the same pieces playing against each other. A similar thing with Tier 0 formats as well. Of course, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea because some people like formats that do have more like diversity in the decks. So that way they can potentially like, you know, have more skill expression, or not skill expression, but like more expression, right? More creativity, right? But I do think that Tier 0 formats are not an invalid thing to play, right? I enjoy my fair share of them, and it's just not for everyone. And the great thing about Retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that, like, if you don't want to play one format, you can just play another, right? That's sort of like the sort of equalizing factor of it that I really like about just going through all these old formats and seeing, right? And that's always been my sort of thing. Like, a lot of people view Retro Yu-Gi-Oh! As like a competition or like a zero-sum game where like there's got to be one format that dominates all the others. But I think that like just play whatever formats you want, you know. It doesn't detract from any of the others just because people are enjoying one format or another, right? So yeah. Papa Perez, if you want to join in future events, head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord, linked in the description of the video. And basically every week, near the end of the week, I basically say, we're going to be having the locals on this day, and here are a range of times that you can vote on for what would work best for you. And you can just sort of vote on that, and then once the time's set, then you sign up and join the events. So yeah, it'd be awesome to have you in these things. They're always a lot of fun, and they go through a variety of different formats. Right now, like, we're covering like at the very end of the DM era, so there's a lot of good formats coming up around this time. So that should be a lot of fun, especially if you like some of the gameplay that you're seeing here. Maybe not the degenerate gameplay, but like, you know, sort of like what's going on in this game right here, where you've got some wild stuff like this. So there will be more like that in the near future. And we also hold monthly events as well that are multi-day, so a bit more time for people to play. And we hold locals to prepare for those as well. So definitely head on over there. And I hope to see you in some of these in the future. It should be pretty fun. Yeah, we're about to enter like one of my favorite periods of the game that I've covered so far, which is basically the period from right after this format to GOAT format. There's a lot of great formats in there. And like Warrior format, which is one of my favorite DM era formats, maybe my favorite DM era format there, is such a blast. Really, really cool. And it also feels a lot like, you know, what a modified GOAT format should be. Where, like, you know, a lot of people complain about GOAT format where they're like, okay, well, you know, I like GOAT a lot, but I feel like it's dominated by KS Turbo and things like that. But yeah. Yeah, we don't play too much GOAT format because there are other formats or other Discords for that. But we do play occasionally, and I probably will be hosting a GOAT Locals when we get to that point in the timeline here. But we will be having some GOAT-esque formats coming up pretty soon. So those should be a blast to play. How would I fix the GOAT format ban list? I think that this is like, it's a bit of a tricky question because I do think that like, did Model vs. PJ wrap up? Let me just check that first. I don't see them here, but yeah, they probably wrapped up and they just haven't mentioned it yet. Okay, Model won that one over PJ. So Model's going to be facing off against Helios Strider, which we'll be checking out. But I would probably say, like, any fix that you do to the GOAT format ban list is going to be a bit controversial because some people will think that cards are okay or not okay. And also, I do think that certain powerful cards are fine being in the format despite how annoying they can be, right? Like, I think, I mean, it does depend on the other cards that are banned, but like, if you look at Warrior format, which I do think is like a good sort of modified GOAT format because it feels very similar to GOAT, but like Chaos Turbo is not nearly as dominant. Warrior format, it has its fair share of degenerate cards that are, limited, right? You can play with Confiscation. You can play with Forceful Sentry. Mirage Nightmare's in there. Magical Scientist is in there. Fiber Jar's in there. So you might look at those cards and be like, damn, those cards are too powerful to be in the format, right? And they are extremely strong. They're pretty staples in the format. Like, most decks play those cards. But I do think that, like, there is still a diversity of decks that see play. None of those cards are super broken on their own. And some actually discourage the use of other broken cards. Like, I think when you have a Confiscation and a Forceful in the format, that discourages the use of as many Dust Shoots as you'd see in the GOAT format deck. And you might be like, oh, well, Confi or Forceful Sentry is actually stronger than Dust Shoot. But, like, I actually think that, while that is true, Dust Shoot's more toxic, which is an opinion that I've said in different videos and streams and stuff. But I'm doing great this Friday, Seaspare. Welcome to the stream. But mainly my argument for Forceful and Confi being less toxic than Dust Shoot, that Dust Shoot basically shows you their entire hand, so they basically lose a turn. Whereas Confi and Forceful, your opponent's drawing a card. So that's a bit of unknown information. So if they set a monster, you're like, is that one of the monsters I saw, or is it a different monster? Things like that. So there's a bit more of, like, psychological stuff you can do with that there to make it a bit more interesting. But Morphing Jar flipping up here, and Helios Giant's going to pitch a Parshath, a Premat, and a Jinzo. So losing the Premat's a bit rough, especially with those powerful monsters engraved there. But I mean, it might just be the end of the game here for this combo deck, especially when Painful comes down. Ooh, that is rough. Yeah, you can do some good Goblin Housekeeping shenanigans in Warrior format. I don't think anyone's found a way to break that yet. But oh, actually, no, wait. Good Goblin Housekeeping comes out in Flaming Eternity, so you can't do good Goblin Housekeeping shenanigans. I think that's right, at least. I don't know. I need to double check that. It's been a while since I played Warrior. But I know that, like, based on testing, it didn't seem like there were too many, like, super degenerate things that, like, were dominant in the format. And yeah, I agree with Elusive Mirror here. They say, funnily enough, a few generic power stables such as Link Duo are almost worse than many because the variance of power level of draws is wider and swingier, a reason I like Yada format. And I agree with that. And that's one of the issues with balancing a ban list, right? Where if you're like, okay, let's take off all these, like, ban cards, or not, let's take off these ban cards. Let's add a bunch of cards to the ban list because they're just too broken, right? But let's leave these because they're fine. It turns those ones that are left into more swingier things and more sackier things. So it basically makes them even worse. So I think that there isn't really a way to, sort of fix the ban list of these formats entirely. And also some people like the sort of comeback potential that something like Pot of Greed or Graceful Charity can give you. So I don't necessarily think that, just hard banning those things is a way to appeal to everyone playing. But that's just sort of my take on it. And I know a lot of people who've played GOAT for a lot longer than I have different takes on it, and that's perfectly fine. Everyone, I think, can have a different take on this sort of topic. But I do think that, like, I really do like Warrior format a lot. And I do think that, like, for people who are a bit tired of GOAT format, I think it's just a very refreshing change of pace. Not saying that people should play Warrior instead of GOAT. I'm not trying to argue for replacement of this, but it's sort of a nice sort of alternative that you can play in addition to GOAT, just to sort of get a different flavor. So, yeah. Yeah, the DB ban lists are a bit awkward in terms of checking legality for some of these formats, because some of the formats use a certain ban list, but only go up to a certain pack release. And, DB basically records, like, okay, what are all the cards released after this ban list, but before the next one? And Flaming Eternity was released after the Warrior format ban list, but before the next one. And it's not in Warrior format proper, so you can't actually play around with it. So, yeah, it's a word of caution there. So, yeah. But, I mean, yeah, PJ, I mean, you get to see it here, too. Woohoo! I probably won't show this. I mean, I don't know. This is... I want to show off the... the Demon Gate deck so bad, but, like, they're just so rough. So rough here. Oh, yeah. I think Format Library is a great source for card pool legality, Elusive Mirror, yeah. They've got a great sort of deck builder there for if you want to focus on a given format, because you can set it to a certain format and build the deck that way. So that probably is the best for that. I have not really played Rush Duels. I've seen people play it, and it does look fun, right? I am not someone who's turned off by them completely changing around the game mechanics and doing the whole, like, oh, you can summon as many times as you want. You draw 5 cards a turn. I think it leads to a different game, but an interesting game. And I think it's kind of fun. And it's kind of a way to meld the sort of modern idea of, like, combo heavy decks with a sort of more, a more old school style of play, because you're not special summoning, you're normal summoning. And I mean, that may sound like a pedantic sort of difference, but I do think it's still fun, and it's kind of neat. So yeah, I mean, that's the downside of playing against degenerate decks, PJ. Or like, sometimes it's not about like the side decking pattern. Sometimes just like, well, I don't have what I need, and that's how it goes. We're seeing sort of some of the degenerate applications of Night Assailant with drag down to the grave, because if you just leave Night Assailant in hand, you basically lose no value off the drag down. So that's kind of neat. Okay, it looks like that is the end of their combo there. So we'll have to see if Yugioh is able to pull off their combo here. They do have a Light and Dark and Grave. No pre-mat, though, so no pre-mat's a bit awkward. Upstart will help a little bit, though, drawing into more stuff. And we'll have to see exactly what happens here. Especially knowing about the Morphing Jar set. It's kind of interesting what they might do. Reasoning coming down. So now Model has to decide, what am I going to call? They're going to call 8. I think that makes sense. 3 DMOC is in the format. So you get to, you know, play 3 DMOC, and if it hits DMOC, then that is pretty good. So DMOC was hit there. Kind of unfortunate. And again, if they had set the pre-mat, then it would have been a bit of a better spot. But I don't think they knew what model was playing before. Yeah, honestly, I think this VOD will be shown at The Hague. Yeah, war crimes are going on here, for sure. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I expected war crimes of a different nature, but we got the war crimes that we got here. So wild stuff for sure. Yugioh thinking about this a bit. They're going to set 1. I mean, I don't know what that set monster is. Could be like could be a crane. Change of Heart. Oh, Change of Heart's really good there. Oh, that's pretty good. Declan asks, just by looking at card artworks, what is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh era? This is going to be controversial. I know it's going to be controversial because, you know, we've done so much in the DM era, the GX era, etc. I actually think my favorite period for just card artworks actually comes around like the middle GX period. I think probably Arc V, just because there's so many cool cards around that time, so many cool archetypes that I really like, and a big part of that is the art. I like when Yu-Gi-Oh sort of goes in these really weird directions with its archetypes and stuff, and as opposed to just like classic demon stuff. And I think the old art still has its appeal, right? Like, I mean, look at a card like Morphing Jar. Like, that's iconic, right? Like, that style is iconic. But I do really like these sort of like more distinctive looks for a lot of the later sets. And also, like, some of my favorite archetypes, like Fluffle, like, you know, Shadal, like, so many archetypes from the Arc V era are so near and dear to my heart because of the art, right? Like, the art is just so cool and fits the archetype so well, and so different from the other archetypes. So I think that that's really cool. So that's just my take. I mean, again, probably an unpopular take, given the audience that I've cultivated, but I do indeed like that time period of the game, and a big part of that is the art. So 8 called again, you know, 1 DMOC down, but I do think that 8 is still probably the right thing to call here. Hitting a Crane, so Crane gets you a draw, and a monster not been normal summoner set this turn, so you can potentially treat out a DMOC here. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, Hoy. Yeah, a lot of people saw Reading Gate and 3 DMOC and said, I'm not playing fair. And I mean, we saw that with Blah on the burn stuff. We see that now with Model Zero on the empty jar stuff. But Helios Trident with the DMOC Gate stuff is putting up a pretty good fight here. And this might just be the end of the game if Model does not have a way to stop an all-out offensive here. Because there's going to be a lot of damage. Now, I will say Helios Trident's deck is down pretty low. So that is important to note, because this sort of empty jar deck can pop off with that. They also do have 4 more cards to their name here. Oh, man. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think you get back DMOC here. That would be my guess. You could go Parshath for the draw, but I don't think you need it. I think DMOC's just generally better here. Yep, they are going to go DMOC. I'll probably get back like Monster Gate, maybe. Monster Gate Tribute, like Jar. I don't know. There's just so many options here for spells. Heavy Storm, that is, I mean, that's a pretty good one. Let's see. They've got 28, 23, so that's 51, 58. So they've got 7,400 damage on board. And yeah, heavy is definitely the right one there, as Papa Perez says. And yeah, just sending back everything there. And I mean, this should be the end of the game. I can't think of a monster that well, maybe Serpent, but yeah, okay, Crane, yeah. And yeah, I think that most of the Reading Gate style decks should not play Serpent because Serpent is just, I mean, in my opinion, you want every monster that you can get out off of Monster Gate or Reasoning to be a combo extender or a big boss, and Serpent is not that. So yeah, we got to see the power of Reading Gate Turbo. I mean, that was basically an OTK and wild stuff with this deck, giving it 3 DMOX there. So yeah, super, super cool stuff. Let's dive into another game while they're going into siding there. But, you know, after siding, you do get to bring in things like Anti-Spell Fragrance and things like that. So it can get a bit rough for the DMOC Gate deck, but it is still a decent spot to be in. Going for a knock on the Thunder Dragon's a bit interesting. You had to know that that was probably a Thunder Dragon if they tribute set it. I mean, it could have been like Guardian Sphinx, but like, I mean, yeah, you probably know what that was. Could just be just trying to get a monster off field because it seems like Danny does not have much defense here. So they want to sort of get that out of the way so that way they're taking less damage. I think that makes sense. But it is kind of rough here. You never want to be knocking a set Thunder Dragon. Raigeki Break hitting a pre-mat, not bad. Not necessarily the best either. But, you know, yeah, no monsters really engraved for it. So, yeah, just attacking him with Spy, probably good enough at this point. Yeah, I don't know. If they set a monster here, that's pretty good because a knock is gone. Knock is semi-limited in this format, so you do have 2. But, I mean, they got to have the other knock here as well. And given that they don't seem to have many monsters, they're still in a pretty good position if you're Haiku. So, even if the knock does come down. Looks like another set there. A set again. And passing back. Okay, seems like Danny's not drawn what they need. Yeah, so this is going to be pretty rough for Danny. Yep, Moth, really, really good. I mean, you got Pot and Change Engrave. Those are pretty good ones to pick from. Pot coming back to hand. Pot, okay, TT coming down. I think that's okay, but the issue here is that, like, now you don't have that for later. I mean, TT is not limited in this format. It is actually unlimited. So you have 3 copies of TT here. So there could be more TTs in the back row for Danny there. But if Haiku draws into more spell and trap removal, that's pretty bad for you. So yeah, it's looking pretty rough here, indeed. Yeah, I don't necessarily know what Danny does to recover here, especially when you're banishing a Light and a Dark, probably bringing out like a BLS or something. And if one of those TTs is back there, you probably have to use it here. But you don't want to do this because then they get in another monster to attack. But like, this is just too much damage on too threatening of a body. So I think you do have to TT this. But Call is interesting. I don't know why they're using Call here. Maybe they got Book. If they got Book, that's a bit awkward. Or maybe they're threatening Book. Okay, yeah, it's just GG. Yeah, they got nothing. They would have survived a turn if they just took the 3k attack, but there probably wasn't much left there to actually win the game. So that makes sense. Yeah, they just Sork in hand, and yeah, nothing coming probably. I mean, if you top deck into like Pot, then that's pretty good, but no Graceful Charity in this format, so you can't set up Lights Engrave to pair with the Spy. So unfortunately, couldn't really do much there. So that's going to be Haiku's win there. I believe. Let me just double check that. I believe that was game 3. They hosted on like yeah, I think that was the end of that game. So yeah. So it looks like Haiku won that one. So that'll go in there. And we got Kesha versus Haiku. The winner of that will face off against Hoy. We got the Helios Strider versus Model Game. So let's dive in to that one. I want to see the Helios Strider deck. I mean, I don't know. I am biased towards the Reason Gate Turbo deck because, I mean, I just love this deck. But, you know, if once you got the loop going, which Model Zero clearly does here, then you could be in a bit of a tough spot. So Ring on the Jar is really, really good here. But Book on the Jar to set it back down is also pretty good. Call on the DMOC. You don't get back the spell from this, but it does shut off Shallow Grave because the DMOC will get banished once the call leaves the field. So, yeah. Yeah, I think World of 4 format will be a little bit more normal. I do agree with that, but definitely will be interesting. I mean, actually, if there's a monster here, then that's a bit rough. No, the DMOC is banished. Yeah, that is very important here. Yeah, Demok is also banished. Yep, there it goes. And they set down the Morphing Jar, a Ring Engrave as well. So, yeah, I mean, this shuts off a Shallow Grave if Helios Red doesn't have any other monsters in hand, but that is a bit unlikely. Yeah, model is sleeved up for the occasion. They got those Morphing Jar sleeves for the empty jar deck. So this is probably going to get back Tayu, I assume. Oh, they've got no Tayus in grave. Okay. This does give Helio a chance if they don't have Tayu here. Getting back a reload to try and dig for a Tayu. But if they can't pull that Tayu, then they're in a bit of a tough spot here. So they're going to go reload, shuffle those back, and see if they can draw some way into a Tayu. But yeah, Mr. Pikmin Master says, I'm rooting for Jar. I mean, Jar is a deck that is not really that represented in a lot of these formats. So it would be cool to see it go off. But listen, I love Reason Gate Turbo. I think it's really neat. So I'm rooting for the Reason Gate Turbo. Let's go Turbo. Jar getting flipped up though. So drawing 5 cards. And I mean, if you look at the grave, 2 books are gone. Still Darkness Approaches. So that is something. Nice one's in grave as well to recycle that. But it looks like, well, actually you can't special summon that monster with Shallow Grave. So Shallow Grave is not able to be online here. So that is important to see. Setting 1 going for Spell Repro now. Probably picking up a Tayu from grave, I would assume. Pitching a Swords and a Darkness Approaches. Picking up that Tayu. Could be the Cyber Jar here. Could be a Morphing Jar. Oh, it is the Cyber Jar. Okay. So yeah, get that knockback in hand because that will come up here. Yeah, both decks are very, very cool. I will agree with that, Mr. Pikmin Master. Yeah. But let's see what happens. Oh, Card D. Card D is brutal here. Double Demok, or no, not Double Demok. That's just 1 Demok. Double Reasoning, MST, Parchath, and Shallow Grave. I mean, Shallow Grave gets back the Crane and probably the Cyber Jar. Yeah, you do Crane Cyber Jar so that way you can stack for the card destruction. So this should be the end of the game here. Unless there's like a Necomonic King in Helios Trident's side deck that they brought in. But yeah, this is going to be pretty rough. Now that Crane is getting the Shallow Grave online. And yeah, I mean, there's not really a good way out of this. So yeah. Ragrat says, best duel should win, but rooting for Jar 2. Wow, we got a lot of Jar fans in the audience here today. I had some more popular deck than I gave it credit for. Shallow Grave getting fired off, getting back that Jar, getting back that Crane. And I think this should be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards in hand right now. This is going to drop the deck size down to 13 as long as, as long as 2 or less of those cards are monsters that can't be summoned. This should be the end of the game because card destruction should wrap it up. Yeah, and that will be the end of the game. It should be at least because card D is there. And yeah, these are peak solitaire, as Hoy says. But, you know, they're very different solitaire decks, which is also kind of neat. But yeah, very rough stuff here for Helio going into that game 3. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a bit rough. And also, there's also the downside for the Reading Gate Turbo deck of not really being able to do much going first to really stop the empty jar deck. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, you got the hand rips, so that's nice, but not really much you can do besides that. Let's dive into Catch Up versus Haiku. This should be a bit more of a normal game here. But yeah, Library is also a solitaire deck, but unfortunately, no one brought Library here. Or maybe fortunately, depending on what you want to do with that. But looks like Zalug has hit the field, hitting in for 14, ripping cards out of hand. This game might be getting out of hand. We'll have to see what happens here. But and a bit tricky. I will also say again, you know, as I mentioned earlier, like way earlier in the stream, it's a bit awkward because, you know, I do think that like Reading Gate Turbo decks are like the best deck of the format by far. But only one person brought Reading Gate Turbo and it's up against Empty Jar, which is a very non-standard deck. So like, if it got knocked out by Empty Jar, like, what did that say about Reading Gate Turbo in the format? Like, I don't know if you can really draw many conclusions from that one way or another. And yeah, I don't know. It's just tricky because, again, only one person brought it, so it's a bit hard to tell what's going on here. Nate's Hilton to pop the Dawn to prevent a rip from the hand. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, this seems like a pretty reasonable game of Yugioh. A bit of a refresher after the sort of war crimes that we saw in the previous games. But, we'll be diving back into the degeneracy relatively soon. I do want to see how the Jar versus Gate Turbo deck does wind up. I think it's an interesting matchup, but Ad Record says we all know Solitaire is the better game in some ways, but I do think that Yu-Gi-Oh is the better two-player game because playing Solitaire by yourself, I mean, it's a way to pass the time, but if you have another player there, they can't really play with you. I guess you can brainstorm like, oh, I think you should, put this here or put this there, but not really much you can play for two-player Solitaire. But Library, FTK, Empty Jar, FTK, Gate Turbo to an extent, those decks do require some amount of Solitaire. Although I always do find it satisfying when, like, with the Gate Turbo deck, you can sort of like, sort of construct a way to play around different back row and things like that. That's where I sort of find the most reward from playing the deck, which is why I'm playing it in the GOAT format tournament going on Format Library currently. So I like that deck a lot, and it's just fun. Knock here to banish the new set, banishing a Moth. Some pretty powerful spells in Grave, so probably good that that was gone. And there goes some Moths from Haiku's deck. Seems like Ketchup does not have any other Moths in deck. Could be just that they're playing one. Could be that they're playing more than one. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'm just going to keep playing the FLC until I go like X3 because, I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I think the deck is fun. It's definitely a deck that not too many people are playing in the tournament, so I think it's a fun time. And yeah, it looks like Breaker's coming down. Do you attack into the Spy or do you attack into the Breaker? I feel like, I don't know, it's a bit tricky. Snagging did not Chimera Tech, unfortunately. We will be holding Chimera Tech Locals eventually, because we're having a tournament for it next month. So we hold 2 weeks of Locals before that, to sort of get people adjusted to that. But this is actually August 2004 format, which is awful. This format is terrible. This format's so bad. I mean, no, it's understandable because I've been covering Chimera Tech a lot on the channel. So, yeah, but this format is really bad. Yeah, it is, it's a bit rough. I mean, it's pre-GOAT. Also, you have triple DMOC and, you have triple DMOC, triple Monster Gate, triple Reasoning, and, it is wild. Yeah, but it's sort of like a hypothetical format. I only spent one video on it on the channel. But I mean, that video was enough for me. I was like, yep, that's all I'm doing with it. And, with the Locals, like, since we got to this point in the timeline, that we're going down, I was just like, you know what? We featured it on the channel. Might as well play it, see if people find something that I didn't or enjoy it more than I did. But, just from watching these games, it has just been, it has been rough. It has been rough. One painful choice in the format. Painful choice is limited, but it is definitely like one of the most powerful cards in the format for sure. I mean, it is just so busted, especially in like DMOC Gate decks. It's just so strong. So it is more hypothetical than Android Pre-Graceful, in my opinion at least, because basically what happened with this format is that for the August 2004 list, they were like, okay, we know there are issues with this game. Okay, we know that things are getting out of hand. We know that we need to ban stuff. But we also know that people are going to be upset if we ban things out of nowhere. So we're going to give you the notice that we are banning certain things come the next ban list, okay? And here are the things that we are banning. But in official play, these cards will not be banned. So, officially in tournaments, this format never happened, right? But it was something that Konami, or I guess Upper Deck Entertainment, was saying like, okay, these are the bans here that we will institute come the new ban list, right? And the ultimate list that they decided to go for in October 2004 was much, much better than the ban list here. Like, this ban list was really, really bad. But, since it is something that people could have feasibly been playing around this time, just like been like, okay, well, that is the new ban list now. Let's like experiment with the format and see what goes on. We are deciding to just play it, for funsies, and I mean, it's not really that fun, but I mean, I'm sure that some people will enjoy it, but like, it is Yeah, but that is a really good tribe. Popping both spellcasters there. And, oh, that is just brutal stuff there. Yeah. And yeah, that's just going to be enough to wrap it up because, I mean, I don't know what you do at that point. But yeah, that is rough stuff. If you want to see the other games that we've been watching here, to see how bad this format is, this is what we've been watching so far. I mean, this is nasty stuff. But Helios Trident has got the combo and off potential here. It looks like a Cyber Jar just resolves, and oh my word, oh no, oh no, this is just. Oh, no Regeki, no Dark Hole here. Okay, that was just okay, it is Model's turn then they're doing this. Okay, that is very interesting. So, 2 Tayus in grave, so not really good ways to recover that. If they draw into the 3rd Tayu, then that's pretty good. Okay, actually, this might be Helios potential to pop off. Of course, it does depend on what model has, but you can't spell repro with what's going on here. Pot is in grave. So it's looking pretty good. Yeah, MJAR sleeves. I mean, they came prepared. They came prepared for the MTGR deck here. They're going to fire a Swords as well, which can give the aggressive sort of Renegade Turbo deck some trouble. But, I mean, I think that they're in probably a good spot overall. If you can combo off with this board, I mean, you've got so many cards in hand. You do have BLS to banish things if you want to do that. Knock as well. Knock getting to banish some stuff. If they hit the Morphing Jar, that's very good. Just getting that out of the deck. They're going to hit the Morphing Jar. 2 out of 3 chance of doing that. So that's gone. And yeah, so that'll get, I think, 1 more out of the deck if they're playing the 3rd, which I assume they are playing the 3rd. I assume, right? Like, empty jar, like, you got to maximize your chances of playing those Morphing Jars. Did they not get that Morphing Jar out of the deck? That's interesting. I'm just gonna make sure. Okay, they call 8 because there are 3 democks in the format, so it makes a lot of sense. Monster Gate here, though, to go into another Crane. Oh, never want that to happen. But I think that this is fine. You generally want to reasoning while your opponent knows less of what's going on in your deck. So, yeah. Oh, Morphing Jar is at 2. You're right, Model. I'm being dumb. That is very true. It's tough keeping track of all these formats. But yeah, Morphing Jar is at 2. That is my bad. Another gate going on here. Probably going to hit a Demock, I assume. This is getting your deck kind of low, so that's a bit awkward, but you can get back the other knock if you need to get rid of the other Morphing Jar potentially. Jinzo is a bit tricky here. Jinzo does not necessarily do what you want. You're also now at 9 cards in deck, so that's a bit unfortunate for you if you give the Empty Jar player another turn here. So, yeah, it's a bit tricky. 3 Monster Gates in graveyard. Reborn is, let's see, is Reborn banned? I think Reborn might be banned. Reborn is banned, so you don't have a way to get that back. You don't have call to bring back the Demock because Jinzo is shutting that off. This is not looking good. You can tribute that Jinzo for a Parshath. Okay. Banish a Lightning. Oh, TT. Okay. That is a way to deal with this. But you're still in a bit of a tough spot. Yeah. Yeah, I'm almost a troop dupe. That is coming because we got Chimera Tech format, and that's still going to be like probably another month, maybe. I mean, I don't know how deep Chimera Tech goes, but we'll be doing that for a bit. Then we get Airblade, which will be a much shorter period of time because Airblade is Airblade, right? It's, I mean, I don't think it'll be much of a of a format there. Yeah. So after Airblade, we will get into Trooper, and I've heard a lot of great things about Trooper. I think it's really fun. From what I've seen. And I think it will be sort of a breath of fresh air after Airblade because Airblade is, I mean, listen, I like degenerate combo decks. You know, I love Renegade Turbo decks. So I love this deck here. Airblade is also a degenerate combo deck. So I will like that. But you know, it is definitely, I mean, it's an iffy one. I don't think it will appeal to most people, so I probably won't be focusing too much time on it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Trooper. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But I probably am going to slow down my coverage of these forums, which is why Chimera Tech format will probably take a fair amount of time, because I've been sort of like blazing through a bunch of formats, like rapid fire, because I wanted to get through the Stein formats, because there were like 4 straight formats where Stein is just a dominant threat. And like a lot of people do not like Stein for good reason, right? Like I'm not going to sit here defending Stein. You know, people do like it. If you like it, that's your prerogative. Enjoy it. But most people I've encountered do not enjoy Stein formats. And because of that, like, I felt like it would be better just to, just bleed through that as quickly as possible to get to the formats that are actually more fun later on. And we finally reached that point, so now I can sort of slow down my coverage, take it a bit more methodically, and show off more of the formats and more of the decks as well. But yeah, I'm really excited for the first Gladiator Beast deck as well. I really love Gladiator Beast. It's one of my favorite archetypes of all time. And, its initial wave of support in Gladiator Assault, it was missing some very key pieces. I mean, everyone knows that it's missing Gyzaris, but it's missing like a quest as well. It's missing Darius. So it will be interesting to see what people do with that. But yeah, I do really like Reaper format as well. But yeah, it is unfortunate that, Stein is sort of completely taken over, as you say. I do think that, like, it's still fun that people can play. I mean, if you look at the tournament results, Stein, like, Monarch and stuff like that, has not, like, I mean, it's been very good, don't get me wrong, but it also hasn't, like, won the most tournaments out there. Okay, this should probably be the end of the game here. I assume what's going to happen is Chaos Orc coming down, then you, like, heavy the board. Yeah, heavy's still, heavy is gone, but, like, oh, what's going on here? You can't normal summon another Democ. No, you can't normal summon that. You normal summoned already. No. Oh, okay, well, rip. Okay, well, unfortunately that turned out that way. I mean, if you had a True Nade would also do it here, but, yeah, unfortunately, that is not exactly how it will go. Yeah, rough that it ended that way, but, that is rough. I didn't catch them in time, but, that will be Yugioh's win. Regardless of the illegal move that happened there. So yeah, it's unfortunate that they both left the game. You normally summon Parshath to trigger Torrential Tribute. So unless there's something that I didn't see, but I'm pretty sure that was the normal. But yeah, it's quite unfortunate, but it might have had some other ways to get into that win there, but yeah, it's just kind of rough. Oh, that was last turn? Oh, I didn't realize that it passed. Never mind. I was wrong. That was my bad. Yeah, I didn't realize that was the second turn. I guess I was watching chat, when that happened. But, yeah, I do think that, like, GBs, I have also seen people playing GBs in Perfect Circle, and that is just such a fascinating period to play it in. And Perfect Circle, I'm really looking forward to that format. I know it's very dominated by Perfect Circle Monarch. And, maybe our exploration of it won't reveal any, like, super new exciting decks, but, like, there are some things you can play. A lot of fun, like, GX archetypes from that period that I have a lot of love for. So, I'm looking forward to it. Dimikari? I can see them playing Dimikari. Yeah. Because, I mean, at that point, you're so starved for Gladiator Beasts. It's just like, you need to play something. Let's see. What Gladiator Beasts are in Assault? There's Haplomus. Haplomus definitely sees play. Laquari, I think, is also in it. I wonder if Spartacus would see play. I feel like not, because Spartacus is just too much of a brick. But, like, I mean, what else are you playing, right? Is, like, Alexander in that form? I don't actually know what Alexander does, because, like, Alexander is just, no one plays for good reason, because it, like, I forget what you have to send it off of, but it's just, like, very underwhelming for a boss monster there. But Fiber Jar getting flipped up, that's one of the differences between this format and something like, GOAT format, where Fiber Jar is in play. A lot of people hate Fiber Jar. I like Fiber Jar a lot. I think it's very fun. But yeah, I was thinking about the equips, because Spartacus searches out an equip, and that's something that you could maybe do. I'm not sure which equips are in Gladiator's Assault and which ones are in later sets. I think there was, like, one equip that came out in Phantom Darkness, but I forget which one. But yeah, the equips are weird. Like, I don't know, like, when you have so few Gladiator Beasts, like, does it make it worth playing those? I don't know. It'll be definitely something really interesting to try out. Like, I really like looking at these archetypes and being like, okay, we are missing pretty much everything that makes this archetype what it is, but, like, what can we do with it regardless, and seeing how it goes. So I'm looking forward to playing around with GBs. But yeah, Fiber Jar basically out of the thought, just an early version of that card. But, that's pretty good Fiber Jar. All the Night Assailants are banished from a knock, I assume. Breaker's banished as well. One Thunder Dragon is banished, so all the Thunder Dragons left in Haiku's deck are a lot less valuable. So pretty good. But yeah, the Shield, I think, comes out later, unfortunately. But yeah, the Shield is the best of them, unfortunately. Yeah, early Lightsworn, I'm also really looking forward to. I think it should be a blast. Of course, Light of Destruction, when that comes out, you do get Gyzaris as well. So, like, Gladiator Beasts are actually going to be, like, a major meta threat. But, you know, early Lightsworn ain't that bad. Like, they honestly got most of their big support cards in the initial wave in Light of Destruction. So, like, I mean, honestly, you're basically playing full-powered Lightsworn versus, like, full-powered Glads. Like, that sounds like a fun time. I mean, maybe not for everyone, but I think it'll be fun. But does shoot getting fired here and hitting a hand of no monsters. That's the rip. That is the rip there. Yeah, there is also, I mean, Dad is around. Yeah. So you got Dad return. I think that there is, yeah, I think LODT format is Dad return. I think that is correct. And then later on, you get Lightsworn format, like right before Edison. I think that's how format libraries sort of partition them out. So, I mean, yes, like Dad decks will also be around. Phantom Darkness is still largely going unchecked. And that set is one of the most cracked in the game's history. So really, really powerful stuff. I think it will be fun just to play around with stuff. And yeah, Charge is also in Duelist Genesis. That is very true. And yeah, Charge is busted for the deck as well. And having 3 Charge, that is nuts. But like, I mean, it should be a lot of fun. Like, I don't know. I think it's just cool diving into these formats that like no one plays, and maybe they don't play them for good reason, right? Like, you know, honestly, for some of them, it's very easy to see why people don't play them. But because like, you know, people have explored them so little, there's a lot of room for creativity and experimentation. So I think it's going to be a really fun thing to check out. So I'm really excited that we've sort of gone over the hump of GX, right? Like, I think the beginning of GX is a lot of stuff to slog through. And we've been slogging through it for the past couple months on the channel. But I think it should be a really fun time now that we've reached this period of GX. Like, honestly, this period all the way to like Frog FTK, I think it's just a ton of bangers, right? Oh, maybe Dark Strike fight format is like a bit bad, but you know, it's like, it's something to test out. So it'll be fun to test out no matter what. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, like Lightsworn format, being Edison format with a bunch of decks turned up to 11, like Snack says, is, I mean, that sounds fun, right? Like, it seems like a neat sort of thing to experiment with. And of course, a more high power level on the format does make it probably a bit more sacky, which is why most people probably prefer, you know, Edison format. But like, I don't know, it's fun to try out as sort of like a refresher on Edison, or like a sort of like hypothetical, like what could Edison have been, you know? So it could be fun. I think Six Sams actually did top an event right around their first release, so they could be good. But I think like a lot of people have just looked at that list and been like, how did this person top? You know, were they just playing out of their mind, or is there actually something here? And hopefully we'll be able to answer that question, because I really like Six Sams. Strike of Neos is one of my favorite sets of all time, because I really do feel like it's the point where the GX era actually got good sets. Up until that point, most of the sets were really bad. But I feel like Strike of Neos, while it's not the best set in the world, is actually like a big step up from a lot of the other ones. And you get sort of jank strategies that are actually playable, as opposed to a lot of the things that came before it. Like, you look at Cyberdark Impact and you look at like the Cyberdarks, you look at like the chain stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that like, if you want to play them as intended, they don't really work well. Like chains, you can go into like chain burn, but I think for a lot of the chain stuff that they wanted to do, they didn't necessarily want to have it be entirely burned. They wanted you to play it in different ways. But the LV monster in Cyberdark Impact, like Dark Lucius and like Allure Queen, like those are pretty bad. And like you go back further to Power of the Duelist, you got the aliens, which are really bad, although I will be doing a video on them in Chimeritic format, because I think the aliens are neat, even though they're not that good. But there's just a lot of things where like they were not really making good cards and good strategies. But I do think Strike of Neos is where you really hit that sweet spot of like, yes, these cards are not really the best thing in the world, but they're fun, and you can actually build a deck that does something unique, right? It's not going to win you too many tournaments, but it will be something that you can do and have fun with. But yeah, exactly, Snack. Like, progression series are a great way to see that, because like, you know, once it hits 6 Sams, it's like, oh, it's just so fun to see that go on. Like, I played in a progression series. It wasn't like on YouTube or anything like that. But I brought 6 Sams like back to back to back, like over the course of a couple weeks. And part of that was because the way the progression series worked was a bit different, where you could basically choose how to allot a certain amount of points each week to get sets. And I went all in on Strike of Neos, because I was like, I want to play 6 Sams. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but I'm just going to play it, right? And my 6 Sam deck was not good. Like, it was a really bad 6 Sam deck, right? But it took names. It managed to win like a lot of events. And they would like ban cards from the 6 Sam deck, and I would still win. And it was wild. So, you know, it can do some good stuff, even if you don't have the full package. So I think it's fun, and I'm looking forward to it pretty well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, Empty Jar is sort of like a feast or famine deck, I think. It's tough because like you either win in the combo or you potentially set up lethal over the next couple turns just through your jars, but your opponent can abuse the jars so much, so it is rough. Yeah, and Puppet Plant also in Strike of Neos. So Strike of Neos actually gets good hand traps. I mean, Puppet Plant may not be the best hand trap in the set, but you got DD Crow. That's in Strike of Neos. So you get sort of different forms of interaction as well. Oh, I love Strike of Neos so much. It is such a cool set, and I'm so looking forward to playing around with it. It is just a shame that the first format we get access to Strike of Neos in is Airblade format, which, I mean, Airblade format is just, I mean, it's wild. Like, it is, I mean, if you don't know what it is, for anyone out there who's a bit confused about what Airblade is, it is a format where you basically got a full power, like, basically a Renegade Turbo deck sort of thing. But you're also using Divine Sword Phoenix Blade to banish warriors and then bring them back with Dim Fuse, and you've got D-draws and stuff like that, and it's just wild. I don't have an Air Neos myself, and they're so expensive, right? Because like of the whole, I think this should just be the end of the game unless they are out of DD Warrior Ladies. They might have one left in deck, so yeah, it's probably the end of the game. But oh, okay, that also does it, yeah. But I would like to pick one up eventually because it is just such an iconic card. And yeah, unfortunately, no reprints. It's been scrubbed from the records because of unknown reasons. But it is just such an iconic card, and like I love the art on it. Like the art for that set is so good, and Air Neos is just such a good card. It boggles my mind that the effect of Air Neos though is like the opposite effect of like Hummingbird. Like it has some like anti-synergy there, which is like very strange. So I'm not quite sure why it works that way, but that's just how it goes. But okay, I think that was Kesha's victory here. So we get Kesha versus Hoy. I think that was game 3. But yeah. Oh, there's such cool ritual decks in Strike of Neos time. Like, oh, it's just so cool. I mean, you get advanced ritual art for one. That's one everyone knows about. But you've also got like weird things like Lycanthrope. You've got like Kuchu Lane, like these weird things that take advantage of normal monsters and stuff. Like that's so cool. I mean, it's just so cool. I'm just so excited for Strike of Neos. It's just so fun. Yeah, and that's actually really cool synergy as well. You ARA with Insect, and you got Sonic Bird and Icarus Stack, which came out in EOJ, but hadn't really seen much use up to this point. So that's actually a really cool idea for a deck snack. Yeah, but I'm going to be cooking with rituals. I'm really looking forward to that, especially because like it's nice. I've been trying to get back into the groove of building stuff. Because Chimera Tech, you can actually build stuff now. And it's been a bit tricky, but this actually ties into what Papa Perez asked here, where how do I decide which decks not to cover for the formats? I mean, you can't show everything. And that is very true. My main metric, well, there are a couple metrics that I use. One is that if the deck in question is one that didn't get anything new from the set, and also that didn't really improve from either the ban list or meta changes or things like that, I don't cover it. Right? Like Gate Guardian is a deck you could theoretically play in every single format after Critter format, but it's a deck that's really bad. So there's like no meta relevance for it there. And it's a deck that like never improved. They're never a card that gets added and you're like, that will make Gate Guardian playable. Right? So, you know, I never really feature it in my coverage. So, it either has to be a deck that I think can have some meta relevance, whether that be at like the rogue level or above, or it has to be a deck that is like a new sort of thing, or that gets new improvements, right? So yeah, it's like, for instance, I'm going to cover alien format, or not alien format, but I'm going to cover the deck aliens in Chimera Tech format. And you could argue that I should have covered it in Stein, but I'm doing a weird thing with Chimera Tech format because Stein is just dominated by Stein, and Chimera Tech format is basically the same thing, but without Stein. So I saved the rogue in Stein format for Chimera Tech format. But I'm going to be covering aliens because it's a new deck. And, you know, it hadn't really featured in the past. I don't think aliens will be good, but I do think that they'll be fun to sort of tinker with, see what they can do, if they can do anything unique at all, and just show what they can do. And after that, you know, I may decide to keep covering them, given that they will receive support. But, you know, if I don't think the support's that good or changes the way the deck plays in any meaningful way, then I won't be covering them in that format. So that's sort of basically my coverage plan. And part of this gets into like an issue that I've noticed as well, with sort of like the way that I cover these things, which can be a bit tough for like new people getting into the coverage. because the way that I've sort of done this is just like, start at the very beginning and just go on a linear path like through the formats, right? And so for me, when I'm going through the coverage, I'm like, okay, well, I covered this last format, I covered that last format, so I don't have to cover it now. And also, people are familiar with this from last format, and so I can, sort of mention in passing or things like that. But it can make it really tough for like new people, like who just find the channel and they're like, oh, that's neat, to sort of get caught up because like, I hope that like it's easy to just jump in for whatever formats you're interested in and not be too lost or something. But it does mean that you might not get to see like, me feature like Great Moth or something. If I didn't cover Great Moth, but like Clown Control, that's a good example. It might mean that like you won't get to see me feature Clown Control because I featured that in a format a long time ago, right? And I could keep featuring Clown Control. Like Clown Control is something you can play in Chimera Tech format. The clowns are both legal. You've got stumbling. You've got a lot of different things like that. But it's just something that's completely irrelevant to the meta and something that did not gain any improvements. So it's something that I won't feature. So for people who do want to see Clown Control action, it's like, well, I have old videos on it, but they might not be satisfied if they're jumping in new. So it's a bit tricky. And if anyone has like advice on like how do you sort of make it easier for new players, or not new players, but new viewers to get into the videos and the formats and things like that, definitely let me know because I'm always looking for new things to do with that. But yeah, that's sort of like my rambling sort of rationale for what to include, what not to include in my coverage. And sometimes I will say, like, I'll be planning on covering a certain thing, but I'll get like burnt out on a format and I'll be like, nah, I can't cover this. It would be neat, but like, they're just, I can't focus more on this format right now. And when that happens, it's always a bit unfortunate, but it is something that like I try not to do. I try and push through it, but it does happen sometimes. So this is interesting. Okay, MST on the Scapegoat, and I believe that it will miss timing here, because I believe it will miss timing because it's a when you can. So yeah, it does. I think it does miss. Yeah. Yeah, because TT has to be activated when the summon happens. So if you do this, then it will miss timing. Yep. So, oh, UFO Roid. Okay, I'm seeing some spice in the comments here. But Crystal Beast I will be covering in Perfect Circle because that's when it does release. So I'm looking forward to Crystal Beast. Crystal Beast is another one of my favorite archetypes. I've got a lot of nostalgia for a lot of the old archetypes around this time. So yeah, there'll be a lot of stuff that I'll be covering and it'll be fun. But yeah, that would honestly be cool. Like the timeline, it can be a bit tough though, because like a lot of decks have a slow descent into obscurity, right? So like, what is the point where they finally become like completely obscure, right? That could be potentially something I try and do in the future. If someone else wants to do it, go ahead. Like, it's definitely not like high on my priority list right now. But hopefully someone can do it. Are they going to do Prio? They're not going to do Prio, and that will be met with a TT. That's a bit risky because a Dimension Fusion here goes really hard. Yeah, Dimension Fusion would be kind of rough there. When is the last possible Clown Control format, Haiku asks? Might be Reaper. And the reason I say it might be Reaper is because there actually was a Clown Control player in a Reaper event that actually managed to get top 8. So, and that was when we like had big Reaper events. So, yeah, maybe Reaper format. Maybe that's something to try there. But I do think that was more like an exception than a rule. But it's still very, very cool. And, a good enough player can make a variety of decks like seem a lot better than they are, right? And it was played by a very, very good player. So, I don't know, is Clown Control meta there, or is it just a deck that someone did really well with? Tough to say. Yu-Gi-Oh! Being a game that also depends on luck as well as skill also plays a factor into this. Like, how exactly do you classify these things? It's why I generally try, when I'm doing my tier lists, to basically rank things like, and say tier 1 is something that I could expect to win a tournament, tier 2 is something I expect to top, and then Rogue is like something that I would be surprised if they top, but I could see a good enough player bringing it to a topping finish. And then sort of like Trash is like, I don't see this deck ever topping, no matter how good the player. But yeah, you should do it, Snack. We got some good formats coming up. I think Chimera Tech format's going to be a blast. And yeah, it should just be a lot of fun. So, exactly, Ratgrass. It's not luck. It's the heart of the cards. That's what it is. I think Yu-Gi-Oh was honestly, like Yugimoto was a luckier player than Joey because the heart of the cards there, like just heart of the cards all the time, you know. Even though Joey had the gamble deck, like Yu-Gi was just going crazy with it. Comfy to rip out that pre-mat, but the hand I believe is just 2 Thunder Dragons, which is, I mean, not the best. So yeah, it is a rough time here. He was trying to also set in a back row now as well. This might just be the end of the game. Dumbrick sets one of their own, so okay, it's not quite the end of the game yet, but it's not looking good. That's for sure. And they're just going to attack in here. And Scapegoat does get fired, so that will protect them for a turn. But might not be enough. That being said, this will take it to game 3 if it all does go through this way. Helio thinking they're just going to pass. Okay, so they might have had something else to do there. Now, as a note, there's no Gatling Dragon in this format, so you can't like use Metamorphosis to go into Gatling to pop things. That is important to note. Gatling Dragon comes out in Flaming Eternity, which is after this format. But that's something that I've been doing a lot in the GOAT format tournament with Reason Gate Turbo. Just betting into a Gatling, banishing the DMOC for a big play. And of course, this DMOC will get banished here. So yeah, get that DMOC out of there. Yeah, I think that's fine. Could have gone back. Could have also gone back Dimfuse. Dimfuse might have been better because then you get back the other DMOC and then do stuff with that, but might have been going too low on life there. Anyways, pre-mat for like, and there's a lot of good options here. You can pre-mat back the Sword, you can pre-mat back the Crane. It looks like they're going to pre-mat back Crane. We have seen Parshath from them, so that's pretty good. They're going to go for a gate there on the Crane. If they hit Parshath, that's the end of the game. Hit another Crane, so they get to draw. And yeah, oh, last turn. Oh, boy. Oh, that would be a spicy one, for sure. Jowgen has not been seen so far, but maybe sometime in the future. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Yeah, that was rough. I mean, I don't know if that was the end of the game there. But yeah, I think that was pretty much the end of the game. But yeah, very, very intense one. And showing that the Reason Gate Turbo deck doesn't necessarily have to just win like right away. It can also grind a bit as well. Let's dive into the other game going on here. We got Kesha versus Hoy. Let's see how that one's going. And these are both for the semifinals. So we're going to be seeing who the finalists are here. Very, very different game state than the last one. Wow, a lot has gone on here. Wow, holy moly. Looks like Painful was used, so that makes sense as well. But yeah, I mean, I think MTGR was a good choice. MTGR is a bit scary for a lot of decks to play. And also, you know, the Reading Gate Turbo decks, they go through a lot of their deck over the course of a combo. So if you're MTGRing them to get them down further, you know, that's pretty good. But Manicore Exodia would have also been very, very funny. But this is not looking good for Hoy here. Although, it really does depend on what they've got in that back row there. If they've got a way to stop Mirage from discarding the hand, you know, that's looking pretty good for them again. So, yeah, it's just no Raigeki, no Dark Hole. Makes it a bit awkward to deal with a board like this. Painful of Kesha's own as well to send a bunch of stuff from deck to grave. What will they be sending? Painful is actually a really skill-intensive card in a format like this. I know a lot of people don't like Painful because they're like, oh, it's, you know, just an instant win card and stuff. And in certain decks, yes, that's true. But I think in a deck like the one that Kesh is playing, where it's more of just a Chaos Control deck, or I don't know if you'd call this Chaos Control or Chaos Turbo or whatever, but just a more standard Chaos deck, I do think it does require a lot of skill. You know, you have to know which 5 to send. You've got to decide, okay, am I using this to deck then? Am I using this to set up my grave? Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Android format is another great place where Painful is really tough to play because Android format, there's no chaos monsters, right? So you can't even just do, oh, I'm just going to send lights and darks, right? You got to decide, okay, what am I sending to graveyard? Am I getting hand rips? Am I sending a bunch of power cards that I might not be able to get back? But, you know, I want them here because I'm just giving my opponent actually a painful choice that I get one to hand. What am I doing with this thing? And it is so, so tough. It's a really good card for sure. Like, pretty much every deck has to play it because there are things like, you know, Bazoo the Soul Eater that really does want cards in grave, Skull Lair as well. And both of those can banish anything from grave in Android format, not just monsters. But it is just so, so tough to play sometimes. And I mean, I really like Painful Choice for that reason. I think by the time the Chaos Monsters come around, like, then the writing's on the wall for this card because it's like, well, you just set up Chaos Monsters and win the game from that. So that's a bit tricky to sort of work around there. But I think like before the Chaos Monsters come out, Painful Choice is one of the most skill-intensive cards in the format, and it also is a really fair card, surprisingly. Like it's broken, don't get me wrong, but also it's broken in a fair way, which is kind of confusing. Like I'm not sure if I'm making sense with that, but like I do think that it is a very fun card in a lot of these formats. But yeah, exactly. It's next. That is a very much more accurate name on release for sure. Model says, I knew a guy who got caught playing Empty Jar regional setting monsters to his spell trap card zone so he could true name them back in his hand for later. I mean, yeah, that's the Infinity player strat, as Haiku says. It's been going on in Yu-Gi-Oh! Apparently a lot before Infernies. For those who don't know, Infernies are an archetype that comes later, where it basically needs you to have no card in hand to use some of their most powerful effects. So what people would do is they'd be like, oh, I'm just going to set my monsters in the back row. They'll never know. And then if people try to pop the back row, they'd just be like, oh, well, I'm just going to scoop it up. It is, I mean, it's the sort of cheating that like, it's just very funny to me, right? Like cheating is never good, right? I'm not trying to encourage cheating, but I do find it funny the ways that people innovate on cheating, and that there were enough people innovating on cheating in this way to have it be a general meme and not just a one-off thing is very funny. But yeah, looks like that Tribe's going to clean up the board a little bit. I mentioned that there's no Raigeki or Dark Hole, but Tribe can effectively be that if you've got the right things to pitch. And Serpent is definitely a good one to pitch off Tribe. Pitching a Sork as well. I mean, you don't have any graveyard setups, so that makes sense. They're going to book down the Shining Angel to prevent the Tribe from going for that. But Hoy's thinking here, so they might have something like the Solemn or something like that. But no, that will go through. Yeah, I agree, Haiku. The scooping is what makes it funny because it means they lose. And, like, it's never fun when a cheater wins, right? Oh, knock on the set. Oof, that is rough. Yeah. Yeah. As Rackcraft says, unfortunately, the judges never agree that cheating is a viable strategy. But it looks like Hoy is not going to choose to pop the Zumbira as well. So that could mean that the set is something to stop that. And it was a bottomless. Okay, that's a bit interesting. So it seems like they are letting the Tribe die. Catch's back row should also be gone here, but that'll just be the end of the game. So it makes sense why they didn't do that. So that's going to go through. Actually, we did see Karibos out of Hoy before. So this could be a Karibo popping down, but nope, that's just going to be the end of the game. So that's catch a 1 up there. Let's see if Dump Truck versus Helio is still going on. Seems like Dump Truck won that one. Or maybe, okay, that's the 2800. And yeah, very, very good position for Dump Truck here for sure. Not really sure what Helio... I mean, there are some things they can do, but it's all going to be a bit tough. Okay, going for change on the Tribe is a bit scary because I can pop like the Demok, can pop the Warrior Lady. So pretty good here, but the Raigeki break popping the Tribe. Wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's a bit... I don't know how Helio gets out of that one then. Looks like, yeah, just double Sork brick. And that's going to be the end of the game. So the Reading Turbo deck does fall here. So it looks like, maybe not Tier 0 after all. Who can say? But again, only one person brought the Reading Turbo deck here. So tough to draw many conclusions from this format here. But yeah, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes, And Chaos is still very, very strong. Just a more typical Chaos build. And Demok also very strong in the Chaos decks. I mean, we saw Dump Truck on the Demok there. So, very interesting to see there. And Demok also has sort of like, you don't have to worry about it just sitting engraved because there's no Monster Reborn anymore. So, before this, in like Amsterdam format, which is also like a hypothetical format, although it's not as hypothetical as this one because there was an event for it, but no one really plays Amsterdam format. But in Amsterdam format, Reborn was legal. And so you could reborn your opponent's Demoks from their graveyard and make it a bit of a risky proposition to get one engraved. But here, that does not exist. And so you can sort of just be fine milling a Demok to grave and setting up your plays for later. So, yeah, a bit tricky. But yeah. Let's see. Model says, I should have played my Earth deck that used 3 autonomous action units. Oh, well, actually, that is a way to get Demok out. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, if you've got autonomous action unit, that is a very clever way to take advantage of your opponent's Demoks. So maybe something to decide. I don't know. That card's just so funny, though. I get why it doesn't see play, but, like, it's so funny. I don't know. Maybe people should play with that more. I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah. But so it looks like this will be for the second finalist position here. And we're going to have a pretty packed finals because all three of the players in contention here, Dump Truck, the current finalist, and Hoy and Kesha, have all won locals in the past. I can actually pull up the locals leaderboard to check. So Hoy has won 2 locals, both in Chaos, I think. Yeah. So they're good at Chaos-based formats here, for sure. Dump Truck has actually won 13 locals, a whopping 13 locals. You know, the highest amount of locals won by any player in this Discord. So very, very good stuff there. And Kesha has won 5 locals in a variety of formats. And Dump Truck also won in a variety of formats as well. But so all these players, very, very good at these formats. And so any of them could definitely take home the crown. But should lead to some great games here. Of course, that Forceful is going to be a bit awkward for Hoy here. But, you know, they do have BLS in hand if they are able to set up their Lights and Darks Engrave. Just no Graceful makes it a lot harder to do. Especially because Kesha knows about the BLS now. So they can sort of play around that a little. But, yeah, it's just a rough time for sure. Also, the Spies banished means that there's less options to get Darks turboed into Graveyard. So, yeah, rough stuff. Looks like Kesha's just going to set 1. So, looks like no monsters here, really, unless they've got a set monster, like a Magician of Faith or something. Looks like they are going to set 1. Okay, pass back. They could have double Spy in hand as well, so maybe it's just a Spy. But if it's double Spy, I feel like you just summon that out, attack in. Painful. Oh, wow. I mean, that is a way to turbo Lights and Darks in the grave. Yep. So BLS might be alive here. We could be seeing a BLS come down, banish that set. But can't do it if you send triple Dust Shoot here. So, I don't know why you send triple Dust Shoot, because isn't that just dead? You just send like, so if you send triple Dust Shoot and then you send like a Light and a Dark monster, like that doesn't do anything necessarily. So, and if you send Serpent, they're just going to give you Serpent. So, I don't know how I feel about that Painful. It does get dead cards out of your deck, but I think at this point, it's better just to press your offensive with the BLS. Banish that set, cut them off from things. If they've got like a Snatch Steal or a Change of Heart, you're not dead here, and you've got a Snatch Steal of your own to take back the BLS. So I don't think you really need to worry about that. Yeah, I don't know. This isn't necessarily the play I would make, but I don't think it's terrible. It's just like, it's not the play that I would have gone for in this moment. To be fair, we also don't know what Hoy's back row is, so that could make a difference. Maybe the back row is like TT or something, and so you don't want to put a high-value monster on board to get TT'd. It's just a cylinder, though. Okay, maybe they're trying to bluff the TT, so that way Kesha would use up removal on it. Who knows? But Serpent is a bit of a risky card just to play into it. Basically, like, you don't want your opponent to know you got Serpent set, because then they're just going to use DD Warley to clear it. DD Warley is at 3 copies in this format for some reason. And so it is pretty prevalent. And you can use it to just banish that Serpent, deprive your opponent of value, and then you're in a bit of a tough spot. So, yep, we see double Rhoda, double Warrior Lady, and you got to send one more here. Maybe a Knock. Knock would be pretty good here. Pre-mat. Okay, Pre-mat also gets you in a Warrior. Yep, so all these different cards lead to a Warrior Lady because there's one Warrior Lady left in deck. So I think you probably just give them Pre-mat. Pre-mat costs them 800, so just go Pre-mat here, I think. I mean, it's unfortunate, but like, yeah, you just give it to them. Seems like they're monster light, so you don't really have to worry about their normal summon being that impactful, in my opinion. But yeah, just pay 8, feel great, if you're Kesha at least, and attack into that Serpent there. And that will probably get banished. Yep, there it goes. And yeah, now you're in a bit of a tough spot. I guess the deck is thin, so you're not really drawing those cards, which might be dead otherwise. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that Painful play, because now, you know, what do you do here? You just sort of top deck and pray, I guess. But against a player like Kesha, that might not be enough. We'll have to see what happens, though. So, oh, wow. Okay, Fiber Jar is a big play here from Kesha. So one of the great things about Fiber Jar now is that, like, you've got all these cards banished from Hoy's side of things. So you don't have to worry about Serpent. You don't have to worry about Spies. You have lost one Warrior Lady, but again, Warrior Lady's at 3 copies here. So, you know, you're feeling pretty good about that. And also you get that BLS out of Hoi's hand. So yeah, this is going pretty well for Kesha overall, I think. And now Kesha can also just get aggressive here, summing out a thing, attacking in. Yep, Assure Priest will do the job. Dodging things like Change of Hearts, Snatch Steal, etc. And then just setting one passing. So it's looking pretty rough for Hoi. Assure Priest is also a great card against the Breathing Gate Turbo decks because they can't go Scapegoat because then your Assure Priest runs it all over. So Reflect Banner coming out, that is a good light monster, but that will get met with a TT. And now, you know, Catcher's going to bring out the Assure Priest, attack in for 17, and do the whole thing over again. So if it was good enough last turn, should be good enough this turn. But the Dust Shoot will stop that, so it can send back the Assure Priest if you need to do that. Yeah, I don't know. Not looking good for Hoi here, even though they do have the Dust Shoot. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens. And that's one of the risks of Fire Jar is that while you are setting yourself up for some good plays, you could also be giving your opponent a good hand. So that is something to keep in mind if you play formats with Fiber Jar in them. You always got to play carefully. But I do think the Kesha's use of Fiber Jar there was fine. I think it worked out for them. But it also depends on what is in their hand now that Hoi does know entirely, which is why I hate Dust Shoot. I hate Dust Shoot so much. I hate it in my bones. I don't get why it's legal for so long in the course of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, but it is legal, and so it is something that people will play, and it's unfortunate. But they're sending back the Warrior Lady here, not worrying about the Assure Priest here, but MST comes down on that back row, hitting a Geki Break, and now the Assure Priest will just get in again. Power of Assure Priest. Definitely a card that was slept on at the time for a lot of these formats, but one that in retrospect is actually much better than a lot of people gave credit for. Just very powerful formats like this, especially when there are very few like good light targets around. So Assure Priest returning to the hand there. And we got to see what Hoi will do here. There are 4 cards to Kesha's 3. So, you know, that is a nice thing there that they've got going for them. They also do know content of Kesha's hand and field. Pretty much exactly. I mean, the set could be unknown, but like, you know what to play around. You know what you don't need to play around. And looks like they're just going to crash that Warrior Lady in for 1,500. So, you know, that does threaten the Assure Priest here. They're going to set a knock to bait out the MST there. So, yeah, I don't think it's the worst spot in the world. Of course, there are top decks that allow Catcher to win the game here. Something like a Change of Heart off the top would just be the end of the game, unless Hoi does have the Karibos in the deck. But, yeah, it's going to be a bit rough. Now, also, I will say, if Hoi does survive the next couple turns, then they are in a pretty good spot in terms of like spell and trap cards, because Catcher used up a lot of their removal in that respect. But, you know, it is a matter of surviving the next couple turns. So, yeah. Assure Priest coming down, attacking over the Warrior Lady for 200, and that will probably banish both, and it will indeed. So, you know, 1-for-1 removal on that Priest. And, yeah, it's going to be a bit tricky here. Kaiku coming down. Kaiku not banishing anything from Grave, but it is getting in for 18, and also stopping future Assure Priest plays. They're also going to set 1, and that probably won't be cleared by a back row. Like a MST. I mean, Heavy could be something, but Tribe coming down, that's a bit scary. Tribe trying to pop that Kaiku there, and that will go through. Tribe, big threat here. Pitching AD Warlord, which I assume was known, and getting met with a ring. Okay, that's a bit scary now from Kesha's shoes, because Kesha's down to 600 here. So, forceful to send back the last card, but now we're in pure top deck mode. This is wild. And yeah, there was light and dark and Grave, so you had to forceful there. And now we're back into pure top deck, so whoever top decks the way to win here will be victorious. And always cool when it comes down to this sort of situation. Both players drawing back row, setting that back row MST to deal with Kesha's back row. Just an MST of their own. So now Hoi drawn into another card here. And I mean, this is a banger game, as Haiku says. Really, really back and forth. Oh, that pot. Whoo! Pot coming down, getting Kesha back into the game. And this might be pretty bad for Hoi here. Summon out a Kaiku. That is fine. Attacking in. MST. Oh, rip. That was a wild one. That was so, so good. Damn, that was wild. Well fought by both players there. But that will be the end of this one. And now we've got the finals. We got Kesha versus Dump Truck. Here we go. For all the marbles, who will be the first-time champion of August 2004 format? And probably the only champion, because I'm not sure we'll ever play this format again. But who will be the champion? We'll have to see. For all the bragging rights. For all the marbles. And let's see. I think they're hosting. Let me check real quick. It looks like. Let me see. Whoops, not percentage. I mean, $sign. There we go. There it is. I love the search function on DB. It's so useful. But yeah. I mean, listen. Lazon 56. It may look sweet from this, but also only one person brought Reason Gate Turbo. And Reason Gate Turbo is a wild deck in this format. I do think that, like, there are formats around this time that approximate what this format does. I think Warrior format is a much more balanced version of this format, because it's basically this, but Torrential's limited to 1, Democ limited to 1. Also, you have the sets releases from Soul of the Duelist and Rising Destiny, which introduce things like Dekoichi, introduce things like Mobius and Thestalos, all of which I think are fine cards in the game. Also introduced interesting jank strategies like Creator, which actually has won a single day event for Warrior format, which is like very, very cool to see. So I do think that Warrior format, like, if you think this format looks sweet, check out Warrior format, because I do think the Warrior format is very similar, but it loses the sort of bad aspects of this format and replaces them with better ones. But, yeah. Oh, well, if you want the Democ at 3, then this might be the format for you. If you want the Democ at 3, then definitely go for this format. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's what I always say, like, there's always a format out there for someone. And even if, like, I'm not the biggest fan of certain formats, like, other people are. And so more power to you if you like this sort of thing. And that's why I try and show them off on the channel, because, you know, I want to show people that there are things out there that they might be interested in playing. And if you do want to play it, it's here for you. That Warrior Lady is kind of making the Serpent a bit awkward here, but Denver could potentially set a different monster now that the Exile's gone. They also got Snatch here to take the Warrior Lady, just to get in for 1,500 cool ones. Maybe tribute that off for something. But it looks like they're just going to attack in for 15, and that will indeed go through on Kesha's part. So, setting 1, passing back, but now Kesha will gain that 1,000, so, you know, really only 500 damage here overall. But the DD Warrior Lady is a bit annoying for them, because it does deal with whatever they bring out here. But of course, they know the DD Warrior Lady is there, so now they can Snatch steal it themselves, attack into the set, and potentially banish that. They're not going to summon here, maybe playing around Fiber Jar or something, but it is the Serpent, so they'll be able to banish that, get rid of both the Snatches, and now they're in a pretty good spot. They're going to set 1, pass back. And what will Dump Truck do? Seems like they're relatively low on aggressive power, given that they just set the Serpent last turn. So it looks like they're just going to set 2, pass back. And we've got a bit of a grinder here. A DB grinder, if you will. That's a great channel if you want some other more modern Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay. But pre-mat here for the Exiled, and that's going to be met with a TT there. Oh, okay, or not. Raigeki Break. Okay, that's going to be met with a Raigeki Break. Okay, that makes more sense than taking the nuclear option on the TT. But yeah, Raigeki Break. Unfortunately, that misclick will reveal to Kesha that Deadrick is on the TT back there. So yeah, a bit tricky there. But there might be stuff they can do. Call to bring back the Exile. They're still going to go for that. And will this be met with the TT is the question. They're just going to let that go through. I think that makes sense, because you don't really need to worry about the TT. Or you don't need to TT there, because if they flip up the monster, right, then you just TT that. If they don't, and just summon something else, then you TT that. So I think that's fine, just to let that Exile go through. But yeah, rough stuff for Dump Truck here. Oh, okay, it looks like they're not going to flip summon here, so they might not have another monster in hand that they want to play into the TT. Dump Truck going to set another pass back to Kesha. And, you know, it's back in Kesha's court. What are you going to do, Kesha? You're going to flip up that set, try and attack in. You're going to summon out something else instead. Flipping up a Moth here, grabbing back maybe a pre-mat, maybe a Snatch. Looks like they're going to go for the pre-mat indeed. Going for a Breaker as well. That'll get met with the TT there. So, you know, it was going to trade for a back row anyways. Might as well do it on that one. Now, they do have a Light and Dark Engrave if they want to go for that, but it looks like they're not going to go for a Chaos Mod. So, might mean that they don't have one. Could mean that they've got like a TT in the back row of their own to protect against Kaiku or something. Or they're just like, Dump Truck doesn't have Kaiku. I'm not worried about that. It looks like Dump Truck is going to pass back. So, he might be breaking a bit. I mean, they are playing Democ. We don't know what quantity, but that could potentially be something here. So, Rhoda for a Warrior from the hand, going for the Dawn. The Dawn Zalug. Dawn attacking in for 14, ripping a card out of the hand. And what will it be? It will be number 3, which is that one, apparently. That getting ripped for the Tribe. Oh, Tribe would have been good there, attacking over the Dawn, but unfortunately doesn't quite work out that way. Comfy, at least, to rip a card out of catcher's hand here. What will it be? Bit of a tricky one. I feel like catcher did not have too much aggressive power of their own. But, okay, ripping a Warrior Lady there. So, I mean, not a bad choice because it is an aggressive thing. But, yeah, Dawn is a wild card. And, yeah, for catcher specifically, Dawn has been overperforming today. So, very, very good stuff on the Dawn. I mean, great Dark as well. Yeah, and just a TD in hand. Yep. So, yeah, rough stuff here. For Dump Truck, it's really just top deck mode or nothing here. Yeah, I don't know necessarily what you do here. Yeah, and also, like, another thing, too, is that, like, we know that Exiled Engraved can be brought back with pre-mat, so anything that Dump Truck does bring out can just be checked by that. And Kaiku is pretty good, I'm not going to lie, but TT does deal with the Kaiku and get that engraved. So we know the last card in hand is a TD. Now, of course, Dump Truck could top deck into a Chaos Monster here or something, but Catcher knows that that's a possibility, and they also know that Dump Truck is at 2,700 life points, so they're trying to close out the game as quickly as they can. If they can deal with that backer, like with Heavy Storm, they should probably have it because they got pre-mat in hand as well, and Dump Truck is admitting defeat. I mean, I think that's fine. You don't want to reveal the back row there, but I mean, they might not have had a monster, but I feel like they probably did, you know. And Dump Truck did see the coffee hand the other turn, so makes sense why you'd scoop it up there. But that was game 1. You know, still got the rest of the match to go. Dump Truck could win. Catcher could win. Anyone could win. We'll just have to see who exactly wins here. But yeah, I mean, Dawn is a very powerful card. I think that, like, it's just going to be a staple of Chaos Warrior decks just until the end of time in these formats, just because it's just so good. You know, you clear their monster, road out of Dawn, rip a card out of hand. It's just like you're up so much at that point, you know. So I think it's a very, very good card in this format. Yeah. Siding is in progress. Please wait. I wonder if they spent much time, like, deciding on the font for this, the siding in progress font. Yeah, I don't know what font it is, but definitely an interesting one. So, yeah. Anything in the Watchers chat? Nope, nothing in the Watchers chat. We don't have any other games to jump through during the siding process. So I hope you'll remain here with me as we wait for the players to side. I mean, it is very interesting to side in this format because I feel like a lot of decks are teched out to deal with, like, the DMOC Turbo deck. Whereas, like, you know, when you're facing up against a regular Chaos deck, like, what do? You know, what do you do in the mirror? We'll have to find out. We'll have to find out. TD from the top again. But we did see how TDs can be a bit awkward for Dump Truck as well. So we'll have to see if they clog up the hand in the end this game as well, or if they're just going to be a good light to have for discard fodder and things like that. Dust Shoot. I mean, yeah, Dust Shoot. It's Dust Shoot. Dust Shoot being Dust Shoot, you know. Favorite card in the game. Favorite card. I love Dust Shoot. I love Dust Shoot so much. Dust Shoot is near to my heart. Just so fun. So fun. Why did they not ban this card? Why did they not ban Dust Shoot? Like, I don't know. It's wild. Like, Dust Shoot's at 3 for so long. I kind of get it in the Stein formats because, like, Dust Shoot is a way to stop Stein. So, like, that's something. But, like, I don't know. After that, just get this thing out of there. Oh, yeah. I mean, also that is a very, very good point, Haiku. Like, people have to catch on to Dust Shoot, right? In retrospect, now that people have caught on to Dust Shoot, it's like, you know, no duh, right? But, like, before that, it's like no one really played it because no one really thought it was that good, right? It's very situational. You know, it's just only monsters sending back. Like, what are you going to do with that, you know? But then once people figure it out, like, there you go. It's all over there. So, yeah, Forceful's pretty good there as well. Revealing a Kaiku, a creature swap, a Forceful, a Ring, and a TT. Or no, wait, that was revealing Catcher's Hand. Okay, so we know that there is the Kaiku, which was summoned and was dealt with. And And there's a Kaiku of Dumbstruck's own. We know that there are double Thunder Dragon in Dumbstruck's hand. The Saku will deal with the Kaiku unless there's something else to stop it, but there will not be. And Dumbstruck's going to set one pass back. Now there are 2 darks, 1 light in grave, so that's pretty good. If Ketcha has a Kaiku of their own, they can bring that out, attack in, banish the darks. But it looks like they're just going to set to Fire Mirage, okay, and pass back. Mirage, another card in this format that's not in things like GOAT, and it is a wild card. I will say that. But Raigeki Break will be able to deal with the Mirage. I really like Raigeki Break in formats with Mirage because I do think it's good both at popping your own Mirages and also popping your opponents. Warrior format is the format that, I mean, my favorite DMR format probably. But I do think that, like, one of the things that I expect to catch on if people start playing Warrior format more is Raigeki Break in so many decks, just because it's so good in that format. But going for a call for the Kaiku, and that will just go through. So it looks like no MST for Kesha here. Maybe they're hoping to draw one. They do have a ring, so ring will be used on the Kaiku there, dealing 1,800. And that will go through. Both players dropping down to 6,200 for the first blood. But yeah, it really did take a while for Dustshoot to catch on. Which, you know, you can't fault them for. I mean, people are still finding new things in, like, GOAT format, right? Like, Gravekeeper Spy, that's relatively recent innovation. Like, a lot of decks weren't necessarily playing too much of that. But, you know, after a certain point, people started to realize, hey, this card's really good. Turbos add darks from your deck. Add deep, like, pretty decent stats. Can get aggressive at certain points as well. A lot you can do with it. So, I mean, that's blowing up in popularity in GOAT format as well. Change on the set. Must have been a pretty good one here. Flipping up a Spy. Bring out another Spy from deck. You might want to TT this, honestly. Because, I mean, I guess you've got Ashura. So you don't need to TT it. If they bring out an attack, you just Ashura, like, wipe out their monsters next turn. Take a fair bit of damage, but, like, you don't really care about that too much. No Spies in deck. Okay, that gives you a lot of information about that hand. You know there has to be a Spy in hand. Because otherwise, they would have had to bring one out from deck. So, that's pretty good to know about. Yeah. And you're probably fine with them having the Spy. I mean, you have to have a way to deal with it, but you've got TT. So, that's something. Gonna bring out the Priest here, just attack into it, just flip it up, I guess. But you do know it's the Spy because mandatorily, there has to be something brought out. Yeah, I'm just shuffling up the deck again because nothing there. TDS wasn't played all that much because burn cheese decks were more common. That makes sense. Yeah, that also makes sense because they're a bit worse against burn and cheesy decks that aren't really playing many monsters. So why would you play Dustshoot, which is basically a hard minus, right? So that does make sense. And I do like that over time people have, you know, people still play burn decks. Like there was the Pui sort of turbo burn deck that did well at GOAT event recently. And also you've got like Panda burn decks that continually manage to, you know, sneak their way into top cuts here and there. But I think overall, like burn decks, like are sort of like not the best deck in the room. There's too many things that are not going for them. Too many things that are going for other decks. And also, like, once people know how to play against them, there are simple things that you can do to sort of, like, hedge your bets against them a bit more to help you a bit. But, yeah. Yeah, but, I mean, the fun thing about those sort of, like, burn or floodgate decks was that, like, if you didn't really have the most resources, they were very good at just sort of, like, oh, BLS comes down, and this won't be the end of the game, but it will be pretty close. They were very good for like budget players, right? They were a great budget option. Most of the time you could afford how much it costs to make them, but and also you could put them together with bulk because a lot of the cards that went into them were bulk. But yeah, Raging Flame Sprite, I loved that card as a kid. Got it in the Fire Structure deck, and I always tried to tinker with it to find a way to make it work, but I never quite did as a kid, besides the stall shenanigans. But I didn't really like playing those stall decks as much, so... and it looks like Catch is taking this out on her own terms, or on its own terms. Attacking in to the Spy for 200. Oh, wait, okay, no, they aren't. Okay, Kesha is bringing out the BLS, banishing that BLS, and just sitting on that. Okay, that works. That works. Kesha has stabilized his position and is in a better spot now, setting one. But you're going to sit on that spot, or, I mean, do you banish with, I feel like you probably banish with the BLS and then pass, right? I don't know, it's tough to say. Very interesting play, though, on Kesha's part here, for sure. Based indeed. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it looks like they are attacking in. I think this does make sense. You got to go aggressive now. If not now, when, you know? And attacking in to deal that 3K into Dump Truck there. And yeah, no Mirror Force. It just isn't Mirror Force. It's not Saku either. You do have a set as well, you know, if it was something. Heavy stopping that back row there. Setting another. Passing back. Ring on the BLS should do it unless there's the Book of Moon in Kesha's hand. Will there be? Nope, there will not be. So that'll be the end of the game. So wow. Wild ending to the game, for sure. Yeah, wild stuff. Wild stuff indeed. And I don't really think that would have been helped by if Kesha had summoned out another monster to get in that additional bit of damage, because they were so low that the ring would have just targeted the other monster, right? And so, I mean, I guess a Sure Priest. A Sure Priest actually would have done it. Yeah, but that plays into TT too much. I guess you got a TT of your own, so like you're just like, well, okay, I'll just go for this and try and win that way. But if it's Mirror Force, then yeah. So I think that was fine. You're playing around different one-ofs, and I think it makes sense to do that. But yeah, rough stuff there indeed. Yeah, good stuff. So Kesha and Dump Truck's going into game 3. Kesha has the advantage going into game 3 because they got the, whatchamacallit, the first turn player priority. Not priority, but it's been a long stream. I'm jumbling up words. We got some word salad going on. Hopefully it's still enjoyable for y'all out there. But 2 hours is quite an endurance stream for me. A bit longer than my normal stream, although we have had locals go this long in the past. And those locals also have had a fair amount of stall shenanigans. So maybe I should have expected it after I saw the deck list that people were playing. But next week, the locals should be a bit better. It's the sort of 2004 World's Championship format. So a bit more balanced, in my opinion. And also, you know, you don't have many stall decks running around, although I'm sure people will bring them. It's just what people do. And yeah, we'll have to see exactly what happens here. Looks like Kesha's going first, as we mentioned. And what are they going to do? What's he going to do? You got the hand rips? No hand rips? Who knows? Setting one, passing back. And what is Dump Truck going to do? Bringing out a Kaiku here, being met with a TT there. So TT popping the Kaiku. And setting one, passing back. That's how it goes sometimes. The back and forth. Dawn coming down. That will be fine on Dump Truck's part. Attacking in. And Raigeki Break will be met there. You know, if it's going to rip a card out of hand, might as well choose the card that rips, especially if that is a Sinister Serpent there. Getting to add back that Serpent. And yeah, doing pretty good here overall. Pre-mat for the Kaiku. That's pretty good. Get to banish the Dawn. Get that Dark out of grave there. Have a big body as well. Yeah, looking pretty good for Dump Truck here, honestly. Setting one, passing back. And looks like no dust shoot there. So that's pretty good. Just got heavy. Heavy goes pretty hard here. But it looks like they're thinking. So maybe no heavy. Maybe no heavy. We got to see what happens. Yeah, let's see. What could Kesha have here? I mean, they don't have heavy, or else they would have slammed heavy, I think. They don't really have much back row, or else they would have used the back row. They might be bricked on Chaos Monsters, honestly. Because can't really commit those to field. Can't bring them out under Kaiku. Could also have, like, Spies they didn't want to bring out. Okay, Zambira is pretty good. Bring out Zambira attack into the Kaiku here. And that will go through. Okay, so you deal with that monster. Still have a 1900 body on your board. And if that goes to grave, you get your Dark back. So we do know that Serpent is in Dump Truck's Rip, though. So if they set the Serpent, that's a bit bad. But Mirage coming down here. Yep, it looks like they're going to set that Serpent. Pass back. And they're going to draw 4 here. Oh, that's going to go through. So no MST for Kesha here. And that's a bit rough. A heavy here is a bit less good because, like, you know, they get to keep the cards in hand. So at least you're able to go Kaiku here, which is pretty good. Because now you can attack over the Serpent with the Zambira attack and directly with the Kaiku, banish that Serpent from grave. And it looks like that will maybe connect here. And you don't want your opponent to have Serpent in rotation when they've got Mirage. Because if they do have that, then, you know, they're able to add the Serpent back to hand in the standby, then discard cards, and then if they discard the Serpent, they're able to add the Serpent back to hand again. So unfortunate that Catcher could not deal with that, but they're just going to set one pass back, and looks like Dumtrick does have the MST for the Mirage, so they went majorly plus on that Mirage. They get back the Serpent as well, and yeah, that's just quite unfortunate for Catcher here. Yeah, rough stuff. Rough stuff indeed. Also, this makes the creature swaps a lot worse if Catch is still on those. So, yeah, not quite good. And also the Snatch on the Kaiku to attack into the Zumbira. Won't banish anything, but it does prevent any banishing from going on. So, Dumtrick is in a very, very dominant position here. Setting another, and passing back to Kesha. Yeah, this is not looking good. I'm not quite sure what they can do here to come back from this. I mean, they've still got 5 cards in hand, 1 card set, so like they do have some things, but it's just not looking good for them. It is rough. It's rough out there. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if that's Moth. The set's Moth. What do they get back? Maybe Mirage, although you can't commit much more. You can get back another Goat. Goat seems pretty good. You can get back MST to stop Catch's own plays. I don't know. Very tricky position indeed. Looks like Breaker's coming down. And Dumtrick's thinking about the Breaker summon. It looks like Raigeki Breaker's going to come down as well, pitching the Serpent, popping the Breaker. But TT is going to be chained to that. So that means that that will get everything popped there. So hitting a nice Alien as well is pretty good. And also getting that Kaiku Engrave. And now things are much more simplified here. Dumtrick's got 5 cards. To Catch's 4. So pretty even here. And life points are also pretty even. No one's got a Light and Dark Engrave, so don't need to worry about top deck Chaos plays. But, I mean, Call's going to be pretty good there. Bringing back that Kaiku, and now things are getting a little bit less even. Also bringing out a Warrior Lady to get that light on field. So if there are Chaos plays coming, you know, it seems like Dumtrick will be able to potentially set them up. But, yeah, this is rough because, especially since it seems like Catch is bricked on Chaos, right? That is what it seems like to me. And because of that, this makes this very, very tough having this Kaiku just keep coming back over and over and over again, banishing all the monsters here, getting all those Darks out of the way. I mean, Darks are the more common monster in this format, but like you do need to get them engraved eventually, and that Kaiku is preventing that from happening. So, yeah, it is a rough one here. Catch is thinking about this one, thinking about it quite a bit. I mean, the good thing is that Kaiku is connected to a Call the Hana there, so if there is like MST or Heavy, you can deal with the Kaiku there. But it's just not looking good. It is not looking good. 2 TTs also gone, so, you know, that means one less, or only 1 TT left. So, yeah, it's tricky. Snatch on the Warrior Lady, I think that makes sense. You want to banish the Warrior Lady and the Kaiku, and you don't have any monsters engraved to banish really anymore. You just have, I guess you got 1. You got the Breaker. But Raigeki Break coming down, popping the Snatch there, getting full value off that Serpent, just, you know, getting that Serpent back. And this is not looking good. This is a rough one indeed. Now, Catcher has not committed a normal or special summon, or I mean, just normal summon this turn. They can normal summon a set here. They're going to bring out a Tribe, and they're going to use that to get popping. Probably going to pop the Kaiku alone, I would assume. Although they could potentially send they could do a Light and Dark banish here to get some things going there. But they're just going to send the Kaiku. I think that makes sense because you don't want to set that light up engrave for if Dumtrick does have a Chaos monster. You don't want them to just bring that on main 1 and then be able to attack. Oh my god, that change of heart. Oh, this is brutal. I mean, this is just rough. This is unfair. So change of heart, taking control of Tribe, attacking in for 31. And I mean, there's the Call. So Call will be something here. Bring back the Shining. So, you know, this is your light, but you do put Dumtrick in a bit of an awkward spot because they kind of have to attack him with the Warrior Lady, banish that, and then attack in for 16 with the Tribe. Tribe then pops itself with the Serpent pitch. I think this is worth doing because you don't want to get down that low. So I think this makes sense. Tagging for 16 with the Tribe down to 2100. And now they just pitch Serpent, pop the Tribe itself. And that's a pretty free interaction there. Of course, if Kesha has Kaiku here, they can banish the Serpent. But you need to draw into the Kaiku, right? So that's rough stuff. Painful Choice will help out quite a bit here. Wow, that is a good time for Painful Choice. But what do you send? This is probably the key moment of the game. I think this will probably be what the game comes down to. I mean, this is a major, major decision for Kesha. Yeah, this is big. This is like, this game is a banger. You know, this is such a good game. Oh my goodness. It's just so back and forth. And that's what makes a great game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In my opinion. Exactly like you. Why are these matches so hype? You know, like, oh, maybe this format is better than I'm giving credit for. But, I mean, honestly, I would just put the credit for Warrior format. If you like these games, Warrior format's basically for you. Because Warrior format's did this, except TD is limited and DMOX is limited. And that's basically, MST limited as well. There are more differences. But, like, Warrior format, get a lot of this sort of stuff going on. And Warrior format's so good. I love Warrior format. I really want that to catch on more. I might try and do some more Warrior format content just because I do feel like it is a very good format. And it's definitely a very slept-on format. I mean, listen, DMOG may have done nothing wrong with his on, but like, it is something that in a multitudes can maybe make some people feel bad, right? Even if it did nothing wrong, you know, I think it is something that maybe should be put to limited, you know? I love DMOC as much as the next guy, but I do think that in 3 it can make for a format that is not the most balanced thing in the world. But I mean, we're seeing some awesome. This is so good. I mean, Ring is a bit of an interesting one. I don't know if I would have sent Ring because I feel like Ring is maybe the pick for Dump Truck because if they get a Chaos Monster out on board, that just represents checkmate because you can't ring the Chaos Monster, and that is a bit of an awkward spot to be in. But Ketchum might have their reasons, so I don't know here. Sakuretsu is what Dump Truck's given, so maybe they have a way to deal with Saku. Maybe they don't. Maybe they... I don't know. But Ashura Priest's coming down here for 17. Setting the Saku. Passing back. Stunprick knows about the Saku. So if they do have a way to play around it, they can. But still, it's a bit of a tricky one here. Power creep is definitely a problem. Oh, Pot of Greed. No, dude. No. Oh, it's not fair. Oh, wow. That's just wild. Checking the grave, so they might have a Chaos Monster there. But they got no lights in grave, so they can't bring out that Chaos Monster. Okay, that makes the ring play make sense. So yeah, Forceful, send back that Ashura. So, you know, you don't have access to that anymore. Unfortunate. But Tribe coming down, attacking in, clearing that Saku. You got to clear it eventually, and that will indeed clear it. So passing back, Dumper's got 2 cards, 2 catches, 1. Just bring out an exile, attacking in. You do what you got to do, you know. I mean, you got to do this. So, Pigeon ATD, this does bring out Chaos Monsters here. So I expect to see a Chaos Monster coming because we did see Dump Truck checking their grave last turn. And they're thinking. I feel like if you banish a light and a dark, you probably win the game here. Either way, just you attack over the exile. Yep, banish light and dark. Can't be the BLS, or else they wouldn't have thought about this. So probably a Sork coming down. Yep, Sork coming down. That's 1,300 damage here. But, you know, if Catcher hadn't brought out the exile, this would have been lethal. So you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. And yeah, I mean, they're probably thinking about summoning the Serpent and getting in for a bit of additional damage that way. I'm sort of of 2 minds about that. Like, I don't know. I think it's fine because there's no lights in grave. So you don't have to worry about BLS. But like, I don't know. It's tricky. Knock on the Serpent, but that's going to be the end of the game. And wowza. That was an intense one. So Dump Truck managed to win that one. But, I mean, just so intense. Wild stuff. Very back and forth. But, yeah, I mean, as blows on, says power creep's the problem. And you definitely see some of that power creep here. I mean, this is a fun format to revisit. Not many people brought the deck that I expected to be everywhere in this locals, which was the sort of full power Reading Gate deck. But that did, you know, fall out against Dump Truck deck here. So maybe not best thing in the reward. I can't speak now. It's been 2 hours. 2.5 hours, actually. So, yeah, I need to do more endurance streaming to prepare my voice for this. But anyways, I do think that, like, you know, the DMOC Reading the Gate deck is still very good. It's got 3 DMOC and plus Monster Gate makes for insane combos. But we're seeing here that maybe there are some other decks that can compete with it. So maybe this is something that people want to play more in the future. If you do, we have a thread for it on the YGO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description and down below. Also, if you want to play in future locals, head on over there as well. And yeah, if you like what we do here, subscribe to the channel so that way you know when we're streaming next. And also when we release new videos. We're covering Chimera Tech format currently, which is a lot more balanced than this format is. And it's a lot of fun. So I encourage you to check out that format and see if you like it. But I hope you enjoyed. As always, I'm going to sign off here because it's been quite a long stream. But I'll see you all next time. And yeah, peace.